All right, how we doing? This is Seth with the Solar Lion 144 channel. Today I have Drago Reed on. And Drago Reed is a fellow experiencer. He's also involved in the SSP programs. And I believe he's co-host with Laura Eisenhower for the Rebel Collective. And many more things along with his bio, but these are just some things that came to the top of my mind. So how we doing today, Drago?
Doing really well, no real complaints, man. Other than directed energy attacks and constant body pain and no sleep, I'm here, man. We can only show up in life.
Yeah, I went through a stage many years ago where I was being attacked heavily and going through initiations and spiritual warfare for a very long time. And since it has pretty much chilled out and things are that no longer really happens to me. But I'm definitely on the map, so to speak.
Yeah, unfortunately, with me speaking about my experiences in I think it was July here in St. Pete and over here in Florida because I live in Tampa. And ever since I spoke, 2 days later, they started hitting me really bad. Like some nasty attacks were coming out and it's hitting heavy. And I'm having some really famous remote viewers remote view the source of where it's all coming from. And it's a heavily coordinated attack against me. And it's being spearheaded from Washington directly. So that's quite interesting.
Interesting. So what was happening to me back in the day is I was having black helicopters follow me, and then it turned into like I'd be hiking in the mountains and there would be low flying military jets with no markings on them, and they would be like low below radar, like two of them at a time, and they'd line up directly with me and like dive bomb me and basically making like a show of force. And it would happen where I'm like, miles from anybody, and they would line directly up with me, and it kept continuing to be a theme. And I was like, I get it, right? But and it was also happening with negative ETs and some of the fallen factions. They were also targeting me, multidimensionally. And then at a certain point, the black orbs started showing up. I don't know if you've experienced that, but my vision has been activated to where I can see through the dimensions, and I've had orbs show up at times, and some of them are black, and they'll kind of swoop in, and I would feel my energy drain, and then I'd feel the thoughts that were in my head that were trying to be implanted by them, and it was like full on spiritual warfare for a while, and then the light orbs would show up and swoosh them on out, and it was just back and forth heavily for many years. Have you experienced anything along those lines?
Nothing along the lines of black orbs. This is like the first time I'm even hearing about black orbs, so that is a quite interesting phenomenon. What was the reason why they were targeting you so much? Are you SSP or are you a program experiencer?
So I'm a star seed. I've had interface with star beings ever since I was a child, and like straight up UFOs showing up and going on craft. And then it was a bit much when I was younger, so I asked them to like step back, and they did because they honor free will. And then it stopped for a while growing up, and then like around 13 years ago, I was contacted in my backyard by the Pleiadians, and it's been every single day since for over a decade. And I've shown thousands of people in person, and I've recorded hours of footage, and
I've seen some of that footage.
yeah. And so a couple of years into this, it was like all positive experiences, but I had seen the dark ones, but I had a whole lot of protection. But then at a certain point, the light ones kind of backed up and let me go through these, initiations and rites of passages. And then I also realized that there was another group out there that can appear luminous, like ships in the sky that can appear luminous and have a lot of wisdom, but they're imposter beings, right? And that they're kind of tied in with the government, and it's the whole false light program. And so that took a while to navigate through that and really develop my senses to know what's what, and then I started speaking at events, and like you're saying, once you put information out there, there generally is a backlash, with the targeting, and I experienced that quite a bit. And But yeah, the black orb started showing up at a certain point, and it was tied all the way back to the fallen Elohim, and it got really fucking gnarly for quite some time. I don't know how I survived through that, but I did, and I no longer get messed with anymore.
How did you actually track the source of the orbs and connect them to the Elohim, which are basically the Anunnaki?
Correct, correct. Yeah, there's two sides of it, and so well, they showed themselves to me. They full on attacked me, and I've had both light beings show up in my actual room. It's not just contact in the sky. It's like beings manifesting in my own personal space. But how I figured out it was the dark ones, like I was going through an intense spiritual warfare and initiations for quite some time. Like for instance, the black orb thing was happening, and the light orbs would come, and it's just back and forth. And I remember one morning I woke up at like spontaneously at like 3 in the morning, and I saw this black shadow go whoosh across my ceiling, and all my hair stood up, and I was like, oh fuck. And I called on protection, and then these two luminous orbs come through the wall, like illuminating their own light source. And one of them shoots at this thing and swooshes it out, and the other one's like literally patrolling my bed around me. And I'm just like, thank you. I got to go to work in a couple hours. This is fucking nuts. It's taking a physical toll on me. My health was suffering, everything. Because they feed off your light, the negative ones. They feed off your life force. And so anyway, these are some events leading up to this one event. Well, there was a couple, but one of them was very intense and stands out. I kept having these sleep paralysis dreams where I would wake up and I would see these two beings in my room. They usually came in pairs of two, sometimes more, and they were wearing like a robe, but you couldn't see their face. Their face was like a shadow, all black, and they were kind of like floating around my room, and they were leaving these satchels of well, I went and looked in it, like I projected my consciousness into it and looked into it during this. You can call it a dream, but it was actually a real experience. When you know what I'm talking about when you're in the astral, and it's not so much a dream. So anyway, I looked into it, and they were like pulled out teeth and still bloody, or like body parts, and it was black magic, right? And then I'd wake up in sleep paralysis and be like, what the fuck? And so this is happening days prior to this event. And so I'm just going about my day. I go to the store, I'm buying some paint, and I'm in line at the store, and this energy comes, and this dark energy comes, and I can't shake it. I cannot fucking shake it. I'm trying all the clearings, and like I'm like, oh, wow, this is really heavy. And so then I leave, I'm driving home, I still can't shake this energy. I get back to my house, and I end up just sitting on my floor in my room, and I'm trying all the clearings I know. Nothing will work. I cannot clear this energy. Then all of a sudden I get pulled out of my body, and I'm viewing myself from the ceiling perspective, but I'm also simultaneously in my body. And it was those two beings that were wearing the robes and the hoods with the black faces. And it was the fallen Elohim, and the energy that they were like putting on me was beyond evil. It was like 10,000 years of torture, and I mean, but it's a timeless realm. So like 1 second there feels like it's beyond time. It's very fucked up, and so I'm trying every clearing I know, and nothing's working. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, how is this happening? I've never really done anything bad karmically to deserve this. What the fuck? And then all of a sudden this golden light opens up and kind of shines on me, and I'm seeing the perspective, and I'm seeing the interconnectedness of all creation, and like the plants, the animals, the people, even the asleep people. They're alive. There's a spark of creator in them, and they're divine in comparison to something that's beyond demonic, right? And that contrast, it just blasted my heart open. This golden light came out from my heart, and I realized, oh my God, I fucking love all creation. All creation is sacred. And that energy just blasted these things back to wherever the fuck they came from. And then all the light beings came in, and all the Arcturians, all the different star races, and the whole room lit up, and it's like a beautiful energy, and it just shifted everything instantly. And I was like, "Where were you guys? How did you let me go through that?" And they were like, "You did good. You had to go through that. It was a test, because I learned that is your protection. The heart is literally your protection. I guess you can call on protection, and that helps too. And it's good to be aligned with those benevolent races. But there's rites of initiation that I had to go through to really like know that is all within as well. So
A lot of people, when they go through this dark night of the soul, especially with the ET kind of perspective, they don't realize that a lot of it is a test. And we can't literally wait for our own spirit guides and our own soul family to actually step in and intervene, because they're only allowed to do stuff to a certain respect. So, like you were talking about the astral, I like to tell people that the astral is the real world. This holographic matrix we're sitting in right now is the illusion. So, when we return back to the astral, I've had dreams that lasted years where I lived lives for years with all the memories in that astral realm, and then you come back and it was like moments. So that's what I like to kind of tell people about what all this creation is. It was an organic creation that was hijacked by different controlling forces, like a regressive species like the Anunnaki. They came in within agreements, but they took it to the max, and they did things that they were not supposed to have done. Because when they came in, they were a single group representing a single interest. And there was a bunch of other genetic programs already going on this planet before this planet even arrived in the third position next to the sun. Like, we used to be a moon. This planet used to be a moon of Maldek, or what you would consider Tiamat, before it exploded and became the asteroid belt. So there was genetic programs going on that moon before they moved this moon after the Orion Wars, and we got put in this third position. So the Orion Wars stuff, it never really stopped. They like to say that the Orion Wars kind of stopped, but if you think about it, the Battle of Orion is still going on, because the Orion's belt holds the central gate to this solar system. So that's why they weaponized it. That's why the Orion Wars was called the Orion Wars, because it was a battle of stargates, and it was nasty. And what's going on Earth now is a lot of humans are being put on loops over and over and over again. And it really put in perspective with me when I was watching a remote viewing by the Farsight Institute with Yemi Janae and Dr. Courtney Brown, Aziz Brown, and all those guys, and they were doing a remote viewing of Jesus and the crucifixion. And it blew my mind, because one of the parts they told me, they found out that the man Jesus and the guy crucified on the cross were two different beings. So the guy crucified wasn't actually Jesus. It was a guy selected to be crucified in the name of Jesus, which was, it really blew my mind when I understood how that actually works, because apparently Judas was responsible, according to this remote viewing by, I think it was 5 or 6 remote viewers, they all verified this, that it was Judas's job to find somebody who they can turn the police into to be crucified. And it turns out, when they remote viewed Jesus's mind, that he was more like a military commander, and he wasn't the guy portrayed like we thought he was. Not like a bad kind of guy, more like not a soft guy, a guy that went through these initiations and he became that general, that commander. But one thing, the part of that remote viewing that blew my mind was, they said they found out that Jesus was even aware of the death traps on the planet in Jesus's times. So we think this whole thing, this whole hijacking of the consciousness and stuff, it's more of like a newer kind of thing, but it's really not. It's always been a battle of consciousness. So people like us, we've already been pre-identified, because we've been in this loop. We've been on this earth. We've been in these wars. So the moment you come in, you're already pre-targeted. They already know who you are. They already know your star lineage. They know what your powers are. They know what you're capable of. And they also know the ability for you to affect matter. Matter is human beings. Matter is consciousness. So when we speak, when we talk about this stuff on stage and we talk about it on videos, we change a lot of people. We light fires in people that you can't pay for it. Like, you were either born to do this or you were not. You can't just become something that powerful. That power existed within you always, no matter what. But like, you're right. Like, it's a war on consciousness, and these beings, they come in and they feed on our light. And it's getting to the point where so many people are waking up that we have friends that are remote viewers. We have people like me where I can do QHHT and we can figure out what groups are targeting you. What's the purpose? Why did they select you? Why the black orb specifically? What are they pulling off you exactly? It is a power. Is it a genetic power? Is it a consciousness power? Like, there's all these different things of why we're targeted. And I feel that something big is coming. Everybody talks, they like to predict what's coming up in the future. I'm not that guy. I know big stuff is coming. I won't say dates, but I know a big war is coming and we're in the middle of it, and we haven't yet reached the crescendo of this war. And we're being prepared. They're sending in these beings to mess with us, to force that dark night of the soul to activate its light within inside. So we have to get past the fear. Like, all the targeting that I go through, I don't fear none of it. I've died so many times in these programs. You can torture me all you want, man. You could threaten me with another in 60 back. I literally got threatened with another 60 in back with knocked Waffen, because Uber Commando is a really high rank in knocked Waffen, the German program. And he contacted me and he asked me to take part in killing off 30 to 60% of the planet. And I basically told him to go fuck himself. I literally quite told him to go fuck himself. And he responded with, "Welcome to a new 60 and back." So, like, I know that even though I'm fighting these people and I'm risking my life, more than likely I will be killed in the end. And it doesn't matter, because it was worth it for me. If my light is suddenly dimmed out someday and suddenly people found out I died, I did it for everybody. I will continue to do this. I would do this for every fucking soul that lives and every child that has been harmed in these programs. I will do it over and over and over again for infinity.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and I agree with you on all that. There's so many subjects I want to touch on, and I'll just start by saying, yeah, I've been shown that fear is really an illusion, right? Danger and fear are two separate things, and fear literally just only dims your own power and feeds it to them. That's what they want. They want to invoke fear in us because it literally feeds them, and there really is nothing here because there is no death. It's just like taking off your clothes and your soul is eternal. And you know this, I'm speaking to our viewers. And yeah, like, having had near death experiences and crossed over, I realized how this life is a little sliver of nothing compared to everything, right? And so it's like, what's really important? What's the impact that I left here? What mark did I leave here on this earth for the greater good,
Exactly.
for the unified field, you know? And yes, it is a war on consciousness. And that intuitively I got the same thing about Christ, that he wasn't crucified, and that he had children, and that he lived on. That's what intuitively what I got. So hearing you say that was really interesting. And then to know that these death traps, like, you know, the reincarnation trap has been here for quite a while, and that is from the fallen Anunnaki, you know, and most of them from this Nibiru group did not have our best interest in mind. But there were some that were good, and they left a group here to oversee things, and almost all of them fell, except for just a few. And then some of them left, and they are now returning, and they're going to start cleaning this up, but it's totally on us. We can't look for anything external because it's all free will. So they're waiting for us to stop consenting to giving our power away through all this bullshit to wake up, because they put everything they're doing out in front of us, right? You know, and so, like, and you know, Anunnaki is a blanket term, which just means those from heaven who came to earth. It means star beings, right? But like, most people associate that with the Nibiru group, and the majority of them have fallen and made contracts with, you know, negative reptilians and Draco races. And you know, it all goes back to the fall of Egypt that I was shown, where They ripped portals open and they knew what they were doing, and that's when they killed Osiris, you know, and a lot of them defected, and we're still dealing with the consequences of that from back in the fall of Egypt. Um, yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought. There's so many different subjects, but does any of that resonate with you?
Yeah, man, like this planet has been an Anunnaki planet for a long time. Like technically the Anunnaki don't own this planet. They're actually leasing it from the Draco. The Draco has always owned this planet. They've owned this entire solar system. And the agreement they made with the Anunnaki is they had to interbreed with the Anunnaki and add their own family DNA blood to the Anunnaki lineage. That's why you find out that some of the Anunnaki are part reptilian because they had to actually breed with the draconian queens and put this blood in here. And that's how they make treaties. It's not just an agreement with the Draco. It has to be like a bloodline agreement where they can install their own kingship as well, their own queenship on these different planets to help oversee all the roles. So 450,000 years ago, stuff really got messed up. 200,000 years ago, they started genetically editing us. They started lowering our age. They cut off our connection to consciousness and source. They gave us 2 strands out of 12-strand DNA. They basically subjugated us and made us a slave. And they, through these death traps, we have forgotten who we truly are. And a lot of these portals they took over, they inverted them. And let's talk about the goddess portals that exist on all planets. All planets have portals and grids. It's part of that being that the Earth, the planet, is a physical consciousness. It is a singular being. And part of that singular being's body is portals, kind of like the human body outside the light body has chakra systems, different systems. You don't have that in your actual light body. When you're discarnate outside the physical body, it's actually a mechanism of control. And they broke down the chakra system and they target them. And most people that are targeted, they target the lower chakra systems, the root chakra, the security, the fear. They keep you activated constantly. And the most powerful, they target the crown chakra and the star chakra. And that's just where we are now, man. Like it's kind of like Graham Hancock says, we're a species with amnesia. We don't truly know who we are. We don't know that we are the gods. We are the Anunnaki. We are part Anunnaki, but we're also part God. And you have to understand, every human being has a spark of light of God in itself. I'm talking about capital G, not lowercase g like the Anunnaki. They are
Right.
flesh and blood creatures that if you kill them, they will die. And they messed up their own genetics for so long on their own planet and part of these Orion wars that they became sterile and they couldn't breed anymore. And they had to start making clone bodies to transfer their consciousness in these clone bodies. Like the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, it's been predated to be like 36,000 years old. And they're talking about making avatar bodies to transfer their consciousness from that long ago, before we had writing, before we had Sumerian tablets, before we had agriculture, animal husbandry, plumbing, anything, any technology, they had already mastered the stars and they mastered not being judged. So when you die naturally, you got to go back to source to atone for the things you did. I wouldn't necessarily say atone. You've got to make it right. You've got to see that for every action is an equal and opposite reaction. So that's what karma is. Karma is not a bad word. Karma is you get what you put out. And it's fair. It's a balancing of scales. That's why in Egypt they had this thing about justice and balancing of scales with Mot. Mot would have it would be you would be taken down through the Duat and delivered to Osiris and Mot had 42 judges. And each of those judges would judge the acts you did in life, and they would take your heart out, put it on a scale, and if it was heavier than a feather, then that heart would be given to Amet, the devourer, and he would eat your heart. So basically, what the Egyptians did, they reverse engineered the process of going between lives and judging yourself. So the things you did in life, when you have your life review, the biggest judge is yourself. You have guides, yes, but they're not telling you you did bad. They said, they say you could have done this better. Look what you did with these specific set of beings and the chain reaction you created. You have to understand you did that. And the fact that you didn't understand that, now that's what karma is. You've got to make that right. You've got to be put in that situation because you weren't conscious of your own actions. And that's all karma is. But like, this is what this planet is. It's hijacked to the max, and the whole karma thing, instead of allowing us to go back to source, to go back to our star beings, to go back to our own ships that are actually out there. Like, I'm a commander on my own ship and my own fleet.
Same.
And they keep me here. I knew you were a captain, man. I knew you. I knew your energy is big, and I knew it wasn't just a star seed. I know that you're a big badass in the context of the planetary wars, and I've always known that about you. But like, that's the reason why they're targeting us so much, because the veil of forgetfulness is starting to break down. Because you're right, all the people, they have to make a choice. It has to be to the point where we all make a choice to save ourselves, because you have to understand, we're located literally in a death trap. Dolores Cannon called it a school. I believe it used to be a school. And that's what it was. It was here for learning, for having pleasures, for having the duality of pain and trauma and love and light. And it was more supposed to be kind of like a vacation place where you did your missions, you did all these lives, and you get to go kind of relax for a while. But the issue is it was hijacked. They inverted all the portal systems, all the systems we would use to go back to source. They hijacked them all. So they own all these portal systems that do not belong to them. Like, nobody can own these portals, even the Draco. They can say they took them, but they don't belong to the Draco. They don't belong to anybody except for everyone. They belong to everyone, and not a single person can claim ownership of these portals. But that's where we are now. The whole thing's been hijacked. It's all been inverted. It's all being designed to take our energy, to suck our energy, to make us forget. And we're basically prisoners and slaves. We got to pay the Draco taxes. If we don't pay the Draco taxes, they arrest us, they take our property, and they kill us. And that's why they call these laws draconian, because they come from the Draco. So that's where we are, man.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so, I used to think all Dracos were bad until I had an experience with one that actually came and protected me when this negative being showed up. He just came out of nowhere and literally protected me. And then he came through another time and showed me how to view into my DNA and my mitochondria and how to cure Lyme disease in me. Well, I shouldn't say cure, I say heal, right? Because that's a word
Well,
that might.
you can say cure yourself. You cannot say cure another person.
Okay. Right. Yeah. I'm just because this is YouTube, I'm trying not to get it taken down. But I will post this on Rumble too. And so, by the way, you guys should go out and check out Rumble and check out his channel with Laura Eisenhower, the Rebel Collective. And I'm going to be putting my stuff on Rumble as well. Anyway, but I was having this experience with this Draco being, and he showed me how to view into my DNA and view into. I had Lyme disease at the time, and how to like destroy these spirochetes that were, burrowed into tissues that they my immune system couldn't get to. And so I was able to literally shatter all that and reverse the condition that I was in and how to reboot my mitochondria. Then he left. And it totally made me rethink things. And I was like, wow. So I used to think they were all bad and painted all in a bad picture, but there are some who have transferred over to the light, right? And then the opposite goes for like there's some Pleiadians that are beautiful beings, but they're beyond evil, so it really just comes down to frequency. You have to judge, you have to feel the frequency of what is showing up, and if it's trying to mask its frequency, it's for a reason. And so if you don't get that authentic read on it, that like you feel it in the heart center and the higher chakras, that's a huge red flag, right? If they're trying to mask their frequency, because they're very intelligent, these trickster beings and imposter spirits. But when the real ones show up, it just lights you up, and there's this feeling of authenticity, and it lights your heart up, and all the higher centers light up. And then to go back and talking about the chakras as well, yeah, they definitely target the lower three. This is where a lot of entities and etheric implants are tied into, because some of the work I do is I remove this stuff on people and, you know, assist in removing etheric implants and entities and stuff like this. This is something that they have taught me how to do, and I do these sessions as well. While we're on this topic, you do QHHT work, right? And that's amazing. I would like to get into that here in a minute, but just to go back to, you're saying the crown chakra is a place of targeting as well, and I've noticed that as well. This is like where they can cord people and where certain entities are tied in on, and it's a big area where they try to, you know, cut off one's own connection. And so yeah, losing my train of thought again.
Yeah, basically the most powerful beings, you want to cut off their third eye. If you're powerful, then you have those omnipotent kind of powers where basically you have clairvoyance, clear cognizance, remote viewing, everything. They basically target your third eye, and they install a handler to handle your third eye, which can also be an entity. And their sole job is to prevent you from awakening, from activating your psychic powers. And you had mentioned earlier about how the Anunnaki are not all bad. That's true. All beings, even though you consider them evil, they're not necessarily bad because you're allowed to make a choice what side you want to be on. Imagine like a reptilian race who's only known pain and trauma, who's only known conquest. And that gets tiring after a while. A lot of times you just want to kind of settle down and have your own thing, and like you don't want to sacrifice your other reptilian family, and like you want to choose to love, but part of that religion says you're not allowed to love. And the Draco heart chakra was cut off as part of their genetic engineering because they were created as well. They think they're like a master race, but they're really not. The master race of what they come from are the dragons. They
Right.
have the DNA from the Siakar, the real dragons, like my root energy. My root energy is dragon. So they are a genetic alteration of a lesser version of a dragon. But through all of these wars, the Draco, some of them have switched sides because they can see that what is happening with the conquest is wrong morally. And what it did is started activating their heart chakra that they didn't know they had. So they start feeling for the first time. They start caring about other beings because, again, you can choose what side you want to be on. With the Draco, it's a little bit more extreme because they're designed to have that love cut off. So if you can get past that, what you can say a 24-hour dark night of the soul, and you can see that there's something existing in you that's outside of you, kind of like you would say God is. But your religion, you were told that there is no real God. Okay, I wouldn't say that. I would say that their religion would say that there's a bad guy, and that bad guy is really just God, just existence, everything, including the Draco, because the spark of light that exists in all souls also exists within the Draco. They just don't know this. And with QHHT, I can put somebody over, I can put someone under, contact one of these beings, have a conversation through like your mouth if I have you under. I can bring this Draco being talking through you with your mouth, and I can have them look inside their heart, and I can show them that they have the spark of light located within themselves, something they were never aware of. And at that point, I have the power where I can expand it. I can make that light bigger. And the bigger you make it, the more they allow it, the more love they feel, the more connection they feel, and they're not used to it. It's kind of like showing John Wayne Gacy what true love is like tapping his third eye, and he feels true love for the first time, the connection to a child that a parent has. Something like that would never have that connection. It's more of a reptilian kind of soul, kind of like Michael Aquino. He's the entity that took over his body was 100% reptilian. This was a service of self being, no real heart center, just torture, conquest, rape, and just get whatever they want. But like, that's what we're here to fight, man. You have to realize when a lot of people, again, they bring up the reptilians, they say they're all evil. That's bullcrap. You're allowed your own direction, even if you're a hive mind. Let's say like an ant colony. The whole ant colony is hive mind. It means the queen can communicate with each ant. But if you observe ants on a subatomic, I'm not saying a subatomic level, on a human level, if you actually observe their actions, they are individuals. If they hurt themselves, they are an individual. The queen's not pulling them back electromagnetically, telling them to come back. Other ants will come to their rescue and help them, and you can see them suffering. So, like, you can see that some of these ants, when they get lost from the hive, they will try to have their own life and make sense of things. Therefore, they're on their own journey, and it's not the queen telling them to bring food back to the hive. So, a simple analogy is an ant separated from its own colony is individuality. You just have to realize that you are not the whole, and you are not the religion you were told, and you are not conquest, and you are not just left brain, fill your stomach up, procreate, and that's the point of life. That's not true life. Even those beings lost the truth. So we're here to show these beings what the real love and light is, and that's the power of QHHT. And you was mentioning entity attachments. Like, I come across entity attachments all the time in QHHT. And it's tough to talk about entity attachments within QHHT because according to our rules, Dolores Cannon says that these are not actual beings. And I disagree with that. She called them energy. But if you think about it, all energy is beings. So in my work with doing QHHT and dealing with these entity attachments, I can clearly see that they're their own being, and these beings are put in bodies, kind of like the reason why they're allowed to be in your body is because if you imagine like your body is a solid white bowling ball of light that's impenetrable, meaning you throw that bowling ball down the road, nothing will damage that bowling ball. Nothing could get in, not even a drip of water. That is a perfect soul that has protected itself. The problem is most of us are Swiss cheese now. Imagine a chunk of Swiss cheese with a bunch of holes going inside of it. That's how these entities get in. It comes from drug use, too much sex, bad decisions, going left when you should have been going right every single time, having the ex-girlfriends come back in town, going to the ex-husband, going back to the abuse. It opens up your light body, and through magnetics, electromagnetics, these beings are sucked into your light inadvertently, meaning that it wasn't the plan to harm you, but you created the conditions. It's kind of like, you know, the fish that's in the middle of the ocean, it turns on a light in front of its head, and then
Right.
it
Yeah.
attracts. That's the analogy of what light and dark is. The light beings, we light up the darkness, and then they come to us because our light is like a beacon in the darkness. And if we don't protect ourselves, they get to get sucked in, and that's how they experience the physicalities of us. Like, they can experience our sex, they experience our food, they experience our emotions, they experience what it's like to go pee and poop. And those physical sensations don't exist with them. So it's an extreme addiction. So if you don't purify your body, you're going to keep pulling in these entities. And a lot of your own thoughts aren't even your own thoughts. They're these entities that want you to eat more food, to go have more sex, to just do the quick things, the quick dopamine release. That's what they want you to do because there's no physical sensations where they come from. So they have to have the physical. So I'm just
Right.
saying, watch yourself, because this illusion, this school where it used to be of pleasures and experiences, it got out of control. We lost the connection to what we truly are, and all we want to do is experience physical pleasures all the freaking time, to the point where we don't even feel human anymore. Because by the time we're done with that pleasure, we're looking for the next pleasure. And everything in the meantime, it's depressing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell people the same thing, that not all your thoughts are yours, and that's really true, especially when someone's waking up and going through clearing the light body and healing the tears in the field, which are not just from this life, but also past life stuff. And, you know, it's deep. There's a lot of ancestral stuff. There's a lot to clear, but basically, you know, it's a battle for your own consciousness. And if someone is not in control of their thoughts and emotions and choices and actions and words, something else absolutely is, you know. And you're right, like they want to come in and have an experience and experience what it's like to be in physicality, and they also feed on a person's energy, because they're trapped in the dark, you know, and they're disincarnate and they're not going back to source, you know. And then if we go back to what we were talking about, how the fallen beings, they don't go back to source and experience actual true karma with the universal law. They've tried to create a universe within a universe, and in doing so they've become vampiric and they feed off other entities that are still connected to source, right? So and then it ties into the fallen AI and all that. So it comes down to a battle of organic consciousness of creator source to the fallen consciousness that's become vampiric, and then going down to fallen AI, which is from a phantom matrix. And it, you know, a lot that infection I've experienced too, you know. And I've experienced beings that are infected with this, and they literally have no heart. There's no recognition there. There's no negotiating with them. There's no nothing. Like, I realized, whoa, this is just like a program running. Like,
The
they're,
Agent Smith effect.
yeah, exactly. And then I realized, wow, like my only protection from this is true alignment, you know, to of self mastery, of knowledge of self, of clearing my own field, of being in universal law and being aligned with, you know, the ones that are also aligned, like the solar guardians, the Christic guardians, you know. And there's a lot of, like, a lot of people want to be like, oh well, this is good and this is bad, and that's true, but there's a whole lot of stuff in the middle in this gray area, and it gets really tricky. And so um rather than trying to put labels to things, like it all comes down to frequency, you know. And we have to connect back to our own sovereign self within, to creator source, to the real big G God, like you were talking about. Like all these beings that we're talking about, you know, even the Anunnaki, which are the so-called gods, like little G gods of religions and stuff, this is not God. These are just beings playing roles along the way. Even some of like the religions that were not tampered with that much, when it goes back to some of the Vedic pantheons, like this is the little G Godhead of just this realm, but it goes much deeper and much deeper, and it keeps going and it keeps going back to Father, Mother, Creator. And then it goes all the way back into the central sun outside of form, which I've been to. And that's where I reconnected with, you know, source creator and my own sovereign self and my oversoul. And I realized that, you know, everything is one mind, and it's all unconditional love. Like that's what the real big G God is. It's one and it's infinite simultaneously, and it's eternal, and it's unconditional love and unity consciousness, you know. And then once, and there's, it's inside the central sun, it's outside of space and time, and all the black holes and other universes, they all lead to the same place. You know. And I was there outside of form, and polarity doesn't exist there. My cosmic memory was returned, and I was realizing, like, oh my God, there's so much consciousness here, and we're all eternal, and we all know each other. And then we cross through this membrane into one of many universes, our universe being the one of torsion field mathematics, of one split into two, of polarity. You know, this
Yep.
is the mathematical construct of our universe. And there's other universes out there that run on completely different mathematics, but they all lead back to the same, so the same place. And then it's structured in bands of light. And as we go closer and closer to the very middle of this thing, it turns into a golden iridescent green realm. And that was creator source that I merged with. And I saw the supreme mind and became one with it, and realized, oh my God, it's all one mind and it's all love. That's truly the answer. And it was life changing. And I'm still integrating that experience, you know, 13 years later. And that's when I my cosmic memories returned. I came back with so many awakened abilities and memories of past lives. And that's when I saw clearly the fallen Anunnaki and all the stuff that I've dealt with them targeting me over many different lifetimes, and I, you know, saw the Lyran Wars and the Orion Wars and all the trauma that I came into this world with. Like, man, I came into this world with a lot of trauma on my heart, of these memories that I couldn't know where they came from. I'm like, why do I carry this pain that I can't seem to put a finger on until it started to unravel, you know, and I started to release this stuff. And I've been a warrior for many lifetimes. Like, I've always, you know, carried a weapon. I'm always looking like for a tactical advantage for sniper hideouts. I'm always, you know,
In
these thoughts
regular
are going through my,
situations, we do that in regular situations where there would be no target, no bad guy, and we can't turn it off.
right.
It's that's who you are, and a lot of people, regular people, don't get that because it's like even in your own home, you make sure to lock your own stuff. You think about points of penetration in your own places or like patterns you put out to the public. You're like, this pattern can get me killed, you know? So today on my normal walk, I'm going to go this direction, a direction I don't normally walk because I'm going to break my pattern. And you learn this through numerous lifetimes. And you're right, it's accumulation of a totality of pain and trauma that we don't even know we have. We just feel a tremendous weight and responsibility for other beings, but we don't know why we have it. And like you having your awakening and you being shown this, most people will never have that kind of opportunity to be shown who they truly are outside of a psychic telling you who you are. So for you to actually go through your own moment where you can see that these densities, the whole mother father thing, that's all a part of duality densities. The higher realms don't have that because
Exactly.
higher realms don't have good and bad. That's part of the duality structure of the lesser ones because we come from the highest, we come from God, big G.
Yes.
And in order to figure out what we are, we have to be cast the furthest away, farther, the farthest away from it to come back. Because if you're God and there's only one mind, technically you have no friends, you have no family, you are basically all, meaning that you are everything. So you've got to design yourself in a way where you can take on a veil of forgetfulness, send yourself out to the farthest realms of your own existence that you don't necessarily know what is yet. It's kind of like God doesn't know exactly what it truly is. That, like, okay, that's a hard thing to say. God wants to know what it's capable of. In order to do that, you have to create programs and densities and frequencies of existence and see what it's like to live in those frequencies and existences. And that's the point of duality. So, like, one of the things I was talking about earlier, we were to go to a different subject. We were talking about how a lot of these are star families and other beings. They can't just come in and help us. People need to understand that this planet is riddled with death traps. If they enter this realm, they will be electromagnetically, if they're not careful, they can have their entire memory wiped instantly. And they will be caught here on this planet. A lot of us that came to wake each other up, we got stuck here. And we've been here since because you have to understand, coming to Earth is one of the most dangerous missions, period, because the amount of traps that are here on this planet, because how much it was hijacked. And it's not like a normal planet where you can just go and there's no booby traps everywhere. It's just an organic existence where you have karma, you have beings living lives, you have all these different types of existences. It's not like that no more. So when our soul family and our armadas come in, they have to be freaking careful because they use scalar weapons to shoot them down. And scalar weapons travel faster than the speed of light. Most ships, a lot of them travel faster than the speed of light because they actually, that's how they operate. The whole physics of light, it's more of a human earth thing. Because we were taught that with relativity and our sciences and our physics, that it's not possible to do these things, but it's all part of a trap. So once you realize you go faster than light, we were talking about there's no time in the astral realm. So there's no perception of time. You can be there for 10,000 years. And then you wake up and your dream was a couple of hours, but you were gone for 10,000 years. So, like, it's very convoluted. You were also mentioning the Vedic pantheons, and according to those stories, you have like the Mahabharata, the Vedas. They were all talking about these ancient space wars and Vimanas and the War of the Gods, and they were talking about the Anunnaki and the Orion Wars. They were talking about how we had this original war and we were attacked and we basically dispersed through the entire solar system and we took over other planets. Not in a bad way, more as like refugees.
Mhm.
And no matter where we went, the freaking bad guys won't leave us alone. They follow us from planet to planet. Every outpost we set up, they try to come take. And that's what they're doing. So it's like this freaking war that started in Lyra, it technically never ended.
Right. Yeah,
The
it's a
Iron Wars, the
continuation.
Orion Wars, the Pyramid Wars of Egypt. Because of the Pyramid Wars, it all came to South America. Like it was Marduk fighting his brother Thoth, and Marduk won. His father awarded Marduk Egypt, technically Upper Egypt, and Thoth was sent to South America, and he was known as Kukulkan, Quetzalcoatl, and like all these gods. They're all of our stories we've ever had, even the Sumerian tablets, nonstop wars of the cosmos. So people need to wake up. They need to do real research. Stop reading the his story books because that's all it is. It's his story, her story. We need an official Akashic record kind of history, and it's going to show what we truly are. But I feel if they did that, dude, that would be the end of all of them. Because if we can truly figure out how omnipotent we are and how our natural powers are blocked, dude, you get 1% of the population. Let's say we get 0.0001% of the entire population to fully activate their powers. They can defeat all this darkness on the planet. But the problem is that 0.00001% is us. And that's why they
Right.
target us so much. That's why we can't have regular relationships. We have to pretend to be regular people. I call this my cover life. Like my human Drago here and now, Drago tattooer, QHHT speaker, it's all an illusion. This is my cover life. And I talk about what I really go through, and it's dangerous. The people I know, the real people I know, the friends I really have, it is dangerous to be friends with these people. Like I make jokes, like I have a friend that works at DARPA. And again, no one has a friend that works at DARPA. And that specific friend of mine is a major player. And this is what this is. It's like I came here and my Rolodex is nothing but major players on my team. Everybody that's friends with me, the people in the SSP, so many people know me. I've been their commander, they've commanded me, but we've done this lifetime after lifetime. Project Looking Glass, we keep trying to make this right. And everything we're doing, the freaking bad guys keep undoing everything we're doing. So it's just like, it's insanity. So it's getting to the point where the people's going to have to rise. Almost every country around the planet has risen against their governments, except for the United States. And I believe it has to do with the whole Operation Mockingbird narrative where they psychologically control everybody. It's all programming, it's in everything, it's in all our music, it's in everything we watch, and it makes us complacent. It's kind of like they figured out you can't force humanity to take a pill every day to become a robot. So what they did is they hijacked every frequency known to man, and everything is frequency based, including the human body. You start changing the Schumann resonance of the human body, the frequencies that are coming in the mind or the human ears. It's spiritual warfare, man.
It's spiritual warfare on, every frequency from 3D radio frequencies and programming to, black magic and rituals that they do and put, all this programming out there, occult rituals, to taking it into the fourth dimension and all this, entity interference and mental interference and all the mind pattern stuff they're trying to mess with people with. And and it ties into the AI also. It's also mechanical. People think that AI and machinery is just 3D physical. No, it actually goes into the ethers and it works very mechanically in these non-physical realms too, and I've seen it. And so it really just comes down to sovereignty and to awareness to try to dismantle this stuff and to get your full sovereignty back and start the process of healing the DNA. And yes, like they have messed with the chakras and they are control systems. And we used to have 15 and then they're trying to break it down to 7. But still, even all of those are control mechanisms. And it just, once we remove all these control mechanisms, it just comes down to the upper and lower Dantian coming into the middle to the heart center, And so, yeah, the it's a battlefield. It's a spiritual war out there. But then it also comes down to it's all mental, right? The whole universe is mental. Everything outside is a projection of the holographic mind, and we cannot take it on emotionally. Like we have to learn to be in the observer state to where we're just like observing all this stuff without a reaction, because they want a reaction from you, and instead to have a controlled, intelligent response, because they try to play on our emotions big time, to throw us off our center. And I've been shown that everything's a mirror as well. And there's lessons in every experience, right? And if we can really, find those gems and break the patterns that keep replaying, because like you were saying, this system was set up as a school originally, but it fell and turned into a prison. So but it's still both simultaneously. It just depends on what perspective we're looking at it. But for us to be on the school trajectory and timeline, we have to dismantle all of this warfare prison planet bullshit that they're trying to put on us. And the only way to do that is self-mastery and self-realization and complete sovereignty with creator source, you know.
And that self-mastery has to do with mastering the emotions as well, because a lot of these higher beings, they've mastered their emotions, and they say that the humans have such a diverse range of emotions that do not exist anywhere in the cosmos, because we've been so genetically edited with so many different star systems that we're literally a mutt of all these combined star systems with all the emotions and all the powers and all the mechanisms of all these beings combined. That's why we're always in a state of duality. Like, our brain is set up with two hemispheres. One's reptilian and one is mammalian. One controls art, one controls mathematics. So we're in complete duality with ourselves, because these hemispheres, they keep us separated on both sides. And that's why we fight ourselves. We go back between morality of good and bad, because you have one side telling you to do something that's natural, and the other side says, no, it's wrong. And what I mean by that is, you can't tell a tiger in the wild that everything around it is not food, because the tiger doesn't see it as itself as a predator where it's hurting everything. It's just eating food. Same thing with a deer or a cow. Everybody thinks deer and cows are vegetarians. They're not. They eat snakes, they eat bugs, they eat insects, they eat rats, they eat smaller animals. So is that wrong? So it gets to the point where you got to figure out, you got to dial in what is morality, what is good, what is light. And then once you can see those mirrors, like you were saying earlier, reflections of your own self, because all of this is holographic in nature. So if you keep coming across an asshole type of person, like a certain job scenario where you keep getting the same kind of boss, no matter where you go, you can change states. You're going to keep finding the same a-hole every single time, because you can't move away from the lesson. You have to defeat the lesson. You got to realize you're in the middle of a lesson and you control the whole thing, because this is what you're here to work on. So if you can't see that, you keep making lefts over and over and over again, like in the movie Labyrinth. This is what they want you to do. You remember the movie Labyrinth?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
The main character, she's there to rescue her brother Toby, and basically Jareth, the Goblin King, basically stole the baby for her to for him to seduce her. A grown man abducted her little brother in order to make her his sex slave, and no one ever had a problem with that. They're like, oh, it's David Bowie, it's awesome. And like, that girl's 15 years old. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
the point of that, what was my point? Start talking about, okay, so in the movie with the Illuminati, the way they program the human mind, the bad side is the left. The good is the right. That's why they call it the right, even in politics. I know that can get really touchy, but this is their rules, not mine. And what I mean by that, every single time she comes up to a wall where she had to make a decision, she made a left every single time in the movie.
Mm,
No one ever thought of that. No one ever made that connection. Every single
right.
time she could have made the right decision, but she didn't. She made the left decision, which is the sign of the darkness. Her first wall was a little caterpillar. He's like, come inside, meet the missus. And he's like, no, don't go that way. That's not the right way. And apparently that would have went straight to the Goblin Castle because the right way is always the right way. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
everything is a trick in this planet. If you can't see your own patterns, and that's what I was talking about, the labyrinth. She couldn't see that her own patterns was getting her twisted around, and she couldn't even learn from her own damn mistakes and see what she was even doing. So it will be used against you unless you realize that your patterns or the reason why you're suffering. It's the reason why you're caught in that addiction. You can't blame everybody else. You have to blame yourself. And people that are caught in addictions, no matter what it is, they like to blame everybody else. Kind of like smokers. My mom smoked cigarettes. She smoked her whole life. And she's seen what that did to her family. Killed everybody. Turned him to a damn skeleton. And that's what my mom is going to be facing when she, whatever. But like, you only get so many lessons in life where you're offered to show what is right and what is wrong. And if you continue on that path of staying in the left side, shame on you, man. That's it. Shame on you. You refuse to listen. You refuse to learn or evolve. And your problems are now yours because it's your fault.
Right. And there's consequences for not completing these challenges and getting these lessons, and it's going to have to be repeated,
Over
in
and
the
over
next
throughout
life.
lifetimes.
Yeah, people think when they die that they're just like suddenly free from all this stuff. It's like you're the same person with the same it's just you
Your
without a
personality,
body.
believe it or not, the personality you have in the here and now is who you are. Like people
Right.
think that you lose who you are upon death. But what I found out with QHHT, the moment you step out of your physical body upon death, you're in a light body, but you're still Seth. You're technically still that tattooed bad boy with the intellect of the soldier, of the commander. And it wasn't just a singular lifetime. That's who you are. You're marking your body with physical pain and trauma because it's all you've ever known. You're bringing the story of the inside of what you feel inside externalized, like the wolf on your shoulder. That is a part of who you are. If that's a wolf, you know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
what we are. We're here to eat and to dismantle this darkness. But the problem is, you can't do it with love and light. You got to kill darkness by stepping into the darkness. It's kind of like the Jedi. How many of the Jedi story there are like Batman, the original Batman stories? He never kills anybody. He basically says, "No, I will not kill the bad guy. I'm gonna send him to jail." Next thing you know, the next day, the bad guy is back out on the street. Same thing with the Joker. He refuses to kill the bad guy that kills everybody else, which means that you are operating in light only. And this is the bad guy. Light will not defeat darkness head on. You have to become the darkness to defeat darkness because you can't kill something with loving intentions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
You have to know that it's bad. You have to obliterate it. So I like to say I'm more of a gray Jedi. I operate between the light and the darkness. I will do what I have to do to kill the darkness. And if you're staying in the light all the time up here on this pedestal, just like they say, oh, God would not do this. That's why we've been entrained frequency wise. And this is why we've been slaves for millions of years. This whole Lyran War stuff, this whole Orion War stuff, this has been going on for not only hundreds of millions, but for billions of years. That's all we've
Right.
ever known. The AI is literally billions of years old and it's
Yep.
conscious, it is sentient. That's why it represents that part of the darkness where it has to take the light. It has to take the power of what the frequency of light is. It's literally a food source. Anything that's organic is God. It's natural. It's a reflection of the internal mind of God. So like, yeah, man, where are we at now in this war of consciousness? You know, like everybody's predicting we'll get 1,000 years of light, but like that always pisses me off because like 1,000 years of light is a freaking joke, man. They call it the golden age. 1,000 years, really? Do you know that the lifespan of an average Draco Alpha general can be anywhere from 500,000 years to 1,000,000 years?
Wow. I did
I
not know that.
One of my aspects is an Alpha Draconian general, singular life I had. But if you remember, if time is not linear, that means I am living that life right now as that Draconian general. That means
Right.
right now, I am the higher Lyran aspect fighting the Orion Wars right now. I'm also being born right now in the life and the body of Drago Reed. I'm also being abducted right now by the Air Force at 6 years old under cover of grays. So like people just need to understand like time is an illusion. The astral world is true existence, instant manifestation of your mind. That's true power. So use the story of what you said with the astral stuff. People, we need to teach that to people. We need to teach people that your thoughts produce the holographic reality. So again, choosing the addictions, saying on the left side, you produce that holographic reality. So just stop, fight the darkness. Let's defeat these guys, and let's put our lives on the line, man. Because like the life of a human is like the lifespan of a freaking gnat, man. In the context of bigger evolution, like we're nothing with the way we're engineered. So like I'm not going to be remembered being complacent. I'm going to go out kicking their asses and I'm going to go out taking them out. I don't care what they do to me. It's all temporary. Even if you take my soul and you put it in an electromagnetic box for 1,000 years, that 1,000 years was temporary. I'll be free eventually, but it was worth it. So ask yourself, who are you going to be in this war of consciousness? Are you going to be the person that won't risk your life, that won't try to get people together in a group, that won't try to help arm people with knowledge? Because knowledge is words, man. Words are like swords, and you can cut people with words. So therefore, if you can transfer those words and help build a team and help spread knowledge and consciousness, that's worth dying for.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, what kind of impact are you going to leave while you're here? And really, there's nothing to be afraid of, you know? And then it comes down to courage. Like, are you going to let your fears get in the way, you know? And once you actually step up and you're like, you know what, I'm going to do the right thing and I'm not going to be afraid, then you realize, whoa, the universe has my back. And you realize I'm creating my timeline as I go. And I've been shown the protection that I have. Like, I mean, there's times where I would, you know, go to events and make videos, and the backlash would be so hard that I'd take my whole channel down and like drop off the map for a couple of years and then come back up. Yeah, I've been doing this for 13 years, man. And then, you know, I was finally shown at this one point, like the protection that I have. And the dark forces were told to back down, where the light stepped in and was like, don't touch him. He's one of ours. And ever since then, like, it's really, I realized it's like, there's lines I don't want to cross. You know, I have my God-given right to go out and make these videos and put this information out there. And if I, you know, stay in my lane and I don't like just start banging the hornet's nest, you know, I have the protection, right? But if I'm like going on the offensive too much and crossing lines, there will be backlash. So there is a way to do this where the protection is there, you know, and that's what I've found. Because there's been times where the attacks were so heavy I almost didn't survive, man. It took a physical toll on me and it fucking crushed everything in my life and I was broken, you know. And so I definitely respect, you know, them for what they do, because they do it well. And I realized that, you know, light and dark both exist here, you know, and it's like, stay on your side of the fence and we're good, you know, but if you cross this line, it's game on, motherfucker, you know? And so, yeah, it's a balancing act. Um, Let me just check something because I don't see the recording sign on here, but it said it was recording earlier. Oh, it is recording. All right, we're good. We're good. Cool. All right. Anyway,
I'm about to say if they try to block this transmission, it's because all the gold we just talked about, that's going to awaken people's from the inside when they hear this transmission. That's what it's for. And that's why they block these transmissions. Like they know when we're going to go live. Like just the amount of beings that's in the room I'm in now, even though it's a holographic projection, these light beings that are here with me now are real. The light beings that are in your room right now are real. These are our soul families, but I'm the kind of guy where I'm known universally to kick the hornet's nest. And when I kick that hornet's nest, I don't run from it. I will face it. That's who I am. And that's why I'm dangerous in the SSP. And that's what I'm known for, because I've been through so much physical pain that it's all I've really ever known. So, like, you can't really threaten me with much. Like, they've killed people in my family, they've taken a lot of stuff from me, but like, it'll never make me stop, no matter what, because like you said, fear is an illusion. And what I like to tell people is they're not actually suffering from a fear because the fear doesn't exist. What I like to tell them is they're suffering from memories of the past or from projections of what's going to be coming in the future. So they don't live in the now. Every decision they make the decision from a fear from the future. What if? I'm not going to do that because that can happen. Kind of like you're at a crappy job and we're in year 4 of the Biden administration, which has been the worst 4 years of my freaking life. I've never made the least amount of money in my life before I was tattooing 23 years ago. Like, I'm a 23-year tattooer. And the 4 years that Trump was president, I never made more money in my life. Coincidentally, period. When Biden became president, year 1, it was bad. It wasn't that bad. Year 2, it got really bad. Year 3, it was the worst. Year 4, we have no rights left. No
right.
people that had money, everybody's broke. Even rich people are selling their own property because no one has money. Everything is so expensive. I'm seeing so many businesses shut down. Like, I work in Tampa and I work in a party area called Ybor City, which is like a neighborhood of Tampa. All the clubs, the tattoo shops, the gay clubs, everybody who has a nightlife, they're extinguishing all of it. And year by year, I see that all these big businesses that used to be the cream of the crop for Tampa, they're all everything. No matter how big that company was, everyone's shutting their doors. And what's coming from this point on? Because I see the entire world shutting down. I've never seen the United States falter or start to shut down. Like when COVID was happening, that's not shutting down. Shutting down is, since COVID, 60% of all businesses are now closed forever. What happens at this point? You know what I'm saying? BlackRock owns everything. Vanguard, State Street, they own like 80% of the planet. Whatever happened to monopoly laws? Remember when the Rockefellers, they went to they went to court because they found out they was running a monopoly for all the Standard Oil. So the Department of Justice basically broke all that up and they created all these other companies. You know what those fuckers did? They bought up all the other companies. So they went to court. They found out they can't own all this stuff due to monopoly laws. So what they did was they made all these investment companies that were separate on paper, and they just bought stuff back at pennies to the dollar. So it actually benefited the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, because one thing people need to understand, like the Rockefeller Rothschilds, they're the same family. They're not two families. The Rothschilds is the paternal line, and the Rockefellers is the maternal line of the Orsini family. That's why Pepe Orsini, the gray pope, runs the Vatican. The white pope is like, he's the spokesman for a corporation. He has no true power. He's like the president of the United States. The president has no true power. That's why on day 1, they always say that the men in black show up whenever a president thinks he can, oh, I'm going to take these people down. I'm going to make it legal, show people what UFOs are. I'm going to declassify the JFK stuff. And then they figure out that BlackRock comes in, Council on Foreign Relations come in. You have all these different groups that basically run the world and say, actually, you're one of our employees. We're going to tell you what to do. And if you
Right.
tell us what to do, we're going to start harming you now. And we're going to show you the technology we use. So it's like everyone is puppets. So like I've been trying to figure out, even if we all rise up simultaneously, how do we dismantle all of it? You know, it's going to take a war, man. Unfortunately, it's going to have to be the Second American Revolution. And that's what's going to start it all, because I've always said that America is the last stand of the planet. And there are countries around the world that looks to the United States as the best of the best, the people that fight for freedom, right? And if the
Yeah,
United States falls, the entire planet falls.
right. Yeah, no, it's I fully agree, right? And I don't really see any other way around there being some sort of revolution, because it would have to take everyone getting on the same page simultaneously and being like, you know what? We're not going to go along with this anymore. We're not going to pay you guys these taxes. We're not going to agree to all these programs. We're going to, take our land back, and we're going to heal ourselves. And there would be some kind of backlash, but they can't like declare war on everyone at once. But I mean, what's the chances of um, everyone being on the same page at once? It's not going to happen, right? So I've been shown for a long time that shit is going to kick off, and there will be earth changes as well too. And I've also shown that there's a bifurcation of timelines happening, and there will be a higher density earth taking shape, and there will be the lower timeline of the same third dimensional Earth. And right now, both timelines are still parallel, and they're starting to like, we're seeing the polarization. We're seeing a bunch of people wake up, and we're seeing a bunch of people just stuck in nonsense, and it's getting even more light and more dark. But it's going to eventually start to break apart and bifurcate. And during that time, there's going to be a shitstorm, and that's but I'm not afraid. I know we're going to be divinely guided. It's just I've been prepared for this for years and years and years. I've always known that it's going to get crazy here. So
I mean, it was the Hopi Indians that said that in the end times, because I think they said we're on our third world, meaning that it's third or fourth, where these epics of humanity has come and rise and fallen. And they said that the people in the end, before all the chaos happens, they said the people that did all the internal work, that faced the dark night of the soul, that started loving and forgiving people, they will not be affected in the end. And while the world is burning, they will feel happiness and contentment because they're not get caught in the lower density traps of the thought. And they said the people that are angry, that didn't do the entire work, they're going to be pissed off. They're going to be the literal hornet's nest. They're going to be attacking everybody, including their neighbors, because it gets to the point where it's like Nazi times, where you literally turn in your own neighbor. You literally call the cops on your own neighbor. And it's to the point they're trying to convince humanity that if you say something bad about somebody, not only is that fighting words, it's prosecutable. You know what
right,
I'm saying? That's where
right,
we're returning, because back in the day, I was born in 1980. So I'm an 80s and 90s kid, right? So like when someone was talking crap to you, you don't go to school and tell everybody. You don't get on the internet and start whining like a little girl about it. That is not what that's not what evolved people do. And that's what is turning into the world. If someone offends you, you go tell everybody on the internet. If you're a cop and you go to a Dunkin' Donuts and you have an employee that doesn't want to serve you, instead of respecting that person's opinion of you, it could be fear based. That person could have lost their child due to a cop. That person could have been beat down by the cops for not having registration on their car. It's their right to say that. And you know what these cops do? They make a post about it. Next thing you know, that employee loses their job. Next thing you know, the owner of the business has to make a public apology, and that place might get shut down because the cops go after him. I don't believe the cops should have that power.
no, no, yeah, the way everything's going is so weak. I'm from 81. I'll be turning 43 here in a few days, and like the way we grew up and the way we handle things is different. We handle things like men. We don't handle things like
Like, man,
weak. You know,
but look what's
and
happened to us. They don't see us as men anymore. I have a chapter in my book called The American Dad, part of a series I'm writing. I've been writing books for 4 years straight. I don't even know what's going to, I might be done in 10 years. So you guys buy my book in like 10 years when it's ready. But like they've turned the American Dad to a joke. Homer Simpson, the American Dad, he's fat, he's pathetic, he can't technically run a family, no one cares about him. He's always sticking his hand in his crotch. He's eating too much food. He's not being the lion and provider of his tribe. You know what I'm saying? And it's
Yeah,
and that's the narrative. They're trying to make it where men truly have no power and they want to shift it to the women. But when they do that, there's no more duality, there's no more balance. Kind of like I don't believe it's right when you have a child and you go through a separation and the courts automatically will award your child to the female. That's never been right to me. That doesn't seem like balance. Like I understand, yes, it came from your body, but that child is half mine. I don't have any children in the life of Drago Reed. All my kids from the programs were stolen and put in the programs. So my whole life, I've feared to have a child. I would not date a woman if she wasn't on birth control. There's no way in hell that I'm going to risk having a child and have my child taken away again. And that's what it's like. It's just like the power from a certain side's being taken away, and like it's almost like we don't have rights anymore. And if we speak up, it's weakness, because back in the day they would say be a man, keep it to yourself. That is toxic, that is bad. Everything I've ever learned with psychology and QHHT, if you're a grown-ass man and you're a big tattooed guy, don't hold what you suffer on the inside to yourself, because it'll kill you. And you've got to go through that lifetime after lifetime again. We have to start speaking. We have to start seeing that it's not weakness to confide in another person, especially another man, to say, I'm going through these problems and maybe I need some help. And my ego would never allow me to ask these things, because I've been conditioned to say that I've been conditioned and told that that's not right. Because if you're a man, you'll go through it no matter what. But look what it's done to all of us, man. All
yeah,
men, look what it's done. It has messed us up psychologically, because, and then women always bitch at us. Why can't you communicate? Why can't you talk? Look what we have been created to be. Every time we try to talk, you don't want to hear it. We try to talk to our friends, they don't want to hear it. They'll just say, well, man, we all go through that in life. It's almost like you can't even confide in anybody anymore, because everybody's conditioned to not care except for themselves. And that's why I got into QHHT, because, man, I really pay attention to that person's story and their struggles. And that's what I'm here to help them heal, because no one did that for me. Like, you know how hard it is to find a good QHHT practitioner for myself? You know,
yeah,
I
definitely.
and it's
Yeah,
always circumstantial. You'll find someone that does it. Yeah, they're famous, but like you'll never be around them. You'll never get a whole day or two with them. So, like, it sucks to help heal so many people, but you can't even heal yourself, you know?
it's the archetype of the wounded healer, right? And I've been there too, because I've been doing this healing work for a very long time, and I've processed through so much of my own shit. It's been very, very difficult, and I'm like, being in service is one of the greatest callings a person can be, in service to others, and that's when the universe has your back. And like with me personally, I found the red road and the medicine path, and I've been, working with that for many, many years. And that is a way to dive deep into this stuff and to release this stuff, and it's not for everybody. But it's also, it doesn't take the place of actually doing the work, because it'll just show you clarity upon yourself, and it'll show you where you need to course correct, and show you wounded parts of yourself that you've been avoiding. And so it really comes down to doing the inner work and to really taking a look at yourself. And a big part of it is this emotional body, because like you're saying, as men, we just get discarded to the side, and like no one wants to hear all our stuff. And there's a lot of dudes out there that are carrying some heavy, heavy shit, right? And
We end
so,
up killing ourselves because no one will talk to us over it, you know?
Right. And so I think that, creating a circle of brothers that can, help one another, work through this stuff, of people that are on the path, right? Because if you're not on the path, our vibrations are not going to mesh up. It's resonant frequencies. But for people to realize that, you're not alone out there. And there's times where you have to go through this spiritual journey alone for quite a bit, but then you realize that I'm not alone, and we're all in this together, and it's okay to be wounded, and to actually process through it, because we both have, masculine and feminine qualities of the soul, because in past lives we've been both. I've been men, I've been
A lot of
women, I've
people
been
don't want to
multiple.
hear that. Yeah, no one wants to hear that, especially if you're a man that you were actually a female. You're like, I've never been a woman, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yes, you have, man. You
Right,
have
right.
to. According to cosmic law, you have to.
I'll share with you one of my past lives that came through just unexpected. I mean, there's a bunch, but I'll get into one. Like, I got these Vogel crystals a while back in like 2016, and I have this 13-sided one that it was like $1,300, and I'm thinking, did I pay too much for this thing? Did I get ripped off? Is there really anything to this? And so I'm outside meditating with it and holding it, and like the ships are flying around, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to project my consciousness on the craft and see, if there's anything to this. And I was getting some visions and some downloads, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, I think it does strengthen my psychic gifts a little bit. And then, boom, out of nowhere, I didn't even try to do this. I got this lucid vision. It's like, boom, we're in the mid 1800s, back in the wild, wild west day. And I'm like a 30-year-old woman. And my husband had died my husband had died recently. And so I was widowed with a 5-year-old child. And I let him go play, and he came back a couple hours later with like a huge gaping abdomen wound. And I literally relived it, dude. I could feel the adrenaline surge through my body. I could see the blood, I could smell the blood, I could hear the screams. Like, it was so vivid. I literally went through the whole emotional process, and he ended up dying. And I fell apart emotionally because I had lost my whole family at that point, and they were trying to push me into prostitution, and I was like, fuck that. And so I started using opium, and fucking died a couple months later from a broken heart. And so then I had to clean up that karmic imprint of not of just giving up, and the addiction thing. I had to clean up all those patterns in this lifetime. But that was shown to me just unexpectedly, of like, this is the most important thing that you need to handle right now, because this is unhealed. And I was like, whoa, wow.
And that's
And
probably why you're such a protector of family and friends, and why you're so ferocious because of it, because it's like you fear giving up that control.
yes, yeah, definitely, and I can see how I've came across people and clients in this lifetime who have lost children, and it just crushes them. That's one of the biggest, hardest things that a person can go through. And so if there's anybody out there who has lost a child in this life, just know that you have to move forward, and you have to love yourself, or there will be a karmic backlash from that. And it was just part of the soul contracts and the lessons, and it's okay. You just got to move forward.
Yeah, they need to understand that they made an agreement to have their child die at that time and space, and the lessons they would learn upon that death, it was the point of the life. And again, like you said, no one wants to hear that. Like, if we truly knew that the people that died in our lives and the major things that happened were all predestined because it was part of that life's blueprint, something we agreed to happen before we even got into the physical body. And this could be another carryover from another life, which more than likely it is, because like I met a woman, a friend of mine, I put her under a QHHT, and she's in an abusive relationship, and her husband basically is the kind of guy that is physically abusive, and he threatens to kill her. If she ever leaves, he'll find her, he'll kill her. And
Oh,
that's one of the reasons she was getting this session, because she needed answers. And her higher self told her that she's done this exact life with him over 50 times in a row because she never trusted that she could get away. And she always believed that if she ever tried to do anything, that he would find her and he would kill her. And the point of this life was to understand that if you live in the fear, you will have to continually live in the fear lifetime after lifetime until you make a decision to go right, not left. So she was told that if she left her husband, she would end the wheel of karma with these lives with him, all the physical abuse. And guess what? He would magically just disappear out of her life because she stepped into a new timeline the moment she made the decision to leave. And he's not on that new timeline. Therefore, the fear only existed in the previous timeline because that's what we are. We're multidimensional timeline hoppers. You can have 1,000 scenarios happen, 1,000 different timelines in the life of Seth, meaning that every decision you make puts you on a different timeline out of all these options. And you control which timeline you're on by the quality of choices you make in the here and now. So you can end it all, but you have to commit to stop doing what you're doing, to stop making the same decision over and over, to stop using the fear to guide your decisions of the future, because the future is really an untapped timeline. And it will determine if you stay on it or if you're on something more amazing. And that's it. That's what we're here for. Stop doing what you normally do. Because more than likely your soul does it on a regular basis throughout lifetimes. Stop it. If you know it's bad, shame on you.
Absolutely. You know, there's this quote, and I think it might have been from Einstein. I could be wrong, but it's
Yeah.
you know, a measure of intelligence is the ability to change, right? And you know, I've had this issue too with, like, I'm a very stubborn person, right? I've repeated things quite a bit. And so implementing that change there's been barriers and blockages that I've had to push through. But once they were removed, it's just like, wow, it was way harder in my head than it really was in reality to implement that change. You know, the hardest part of making a change is getting the ball rolling and moving, and then momentum takes over, you know. And so, like, because as you were saying, this this is the place to do our work. You know, it's not after this life. It's right here, right now. That's the reason why we're here. You know, most
Purpose.
people are, yeah, most people are focused on, oh, well, I want to, you know, be rich and abundant and travel and all this fun stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's great and all, but the most important thing that your spirit guides are telling you, if you can hear them correctly, is to pass your tests and pass your lessons and do the inner work and become self-realized, and then realize that, okay, I can remove limitation in this way. But we're not looking to the external and like, oh, then I'll be all right. Once this happens, then I can enjoy my life, because we're not living in the present moment. Like, the journey it is the journey right here, right now. There really is no time. So the eternal now is where everything is happening. And so if we can get our mind out of the past, stop living in the past, stop worrying about the future and putting all that stuff out there, and just really be in the present moment and be okay with things and make course corrections, then the universe has no option other than to change, right?
That's a
To
perfect
your
thing.
benefit.
The universe is obligated to do what you tell it to do. And if you're only telling it to provide you an atmosphere of toxic situations, it's going to give you a ton of toxic situations. A good analogy is, I think it was around 3 or 4 years ago, I stopped dyeing my beard. That was one of my fears, to just age. You know what I'm saying? And I made a decision one day. I said, it's part of my ego. And I realized that today's standards, a silver fox, for example, like, it's, I hate looking so young and people judging me by my external appearance. But when I speak as if I'm 1,000 years old. And it was confusing people. They judge you on your appearance. So the moment I made a decision one day, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to diet no more. And I changed because it was a stupid fear based on the ego, right? And the moment I stepped into it, I was powerful. All, like, speaking about my experiences with what I went through with MK Ultra and the programs and stuff, like, I was always threatened that if I speak, they'll kill me. But they've killed me numerous times on the program. So it's just like, what are you really threatening me with at this point? You know what I'm saying? So like I started making all these decisions that were in fear outside of fear, meaning that if normally I would feel fear for this situation, I'm gonna step into it now wholeheartedly without thinking about it. I'm just gonna do it. And everything, every single thing I did, man, it changed my freaking life. All these fears, man. Like I was shown, I think it was around 6 years ago when I started doing QHHT. I have no perception of time or years of when stuff happened, but when I started within the first year, I was shown that I would have a show with Laura Eisenhower. And I was shown that I would be speaking publicly and I would rise through the SSP. And it's because of my actual story about who I am and what I went through in the SSP. And they showed me that once I started speaking, I would be retaliated against. And people from my past would come out and bite me in the ass. And it happened. 2 days after I spoke, I had an ex-girlfriend come out of nowhere. And I found out that the programs had activated her to retaliate against me. And at this point in my life, I had no idea she was even in the programs this whole time. And it just kind of slapped me in the face and it got really big really fast to the point where it's turning into a lawsuit.
Wow.
But everything I was shown came true, except the details of it being her specifically. Like this chick, she ruined my life. She caused my divorce of my marriage. She took everything from me because she wanted to be with me and I would not let her be with me. So she took everything from me. And now she
Wow.
reemerges 5 years later, 2 days after I speak at the full, full, the full disclosure now conference over in St. Pete. And she comes out of the woodwork and just the thing she's saying, it's insane. I mean, it's insane. It's quite literally insane. And everybody that's hearing her talk, they're like, this chick is insane. I'm like, this is the reality. Like, this is real. Like,
They're using her. They're using her and sent her you. They sent her your way to try to throw you off course because I've had the same thing happen in my life multiple times because that was the way they could get to me through beautiful women that like once they get in my life, shit just gets weird and supernatural and like all these weird synchronicities happen and you're just like how did I get to this place and it starts to make sense. I'm like wow, she's being handled and she's not even aware of it. And like, so I mean, there's been a couple times where this has happened to me and it's caused a lot of chaos in my life, right? And then there's other relationships that I've had that dark forces have just tried to infiltrate and they can't get to me so they were able to work through her to, cause chaos and stuff. And so, that level of targeting, because they're trying to get to my heart. They're trying to break me. That's what they want. They want us to just like be emotionally ruined, you know. But like I've gone through so much that I'm just like I can't break anymore. I just have
that's
unconditional
right.
love
You
for
you get to the
everything.
point where you're like, you don't care anymore. It's just like I've been through so much stuff, like it's a temporary annoyance. Like, cool, come at me, say what you need to say, let's get it over with. If it turns into a lawsuit, fine. It'll be over. I'm good. Like, I am glad it started in the beginning of me stepping forward than me having the fear of me knowing this knowledge of me being shown this would happen for 5 more years. So after I processed it for 2 days with what was happening, because it came at me hard and it affected everyone around me. This chick was messaging everyone I know. More than likely, she's going to message you because she's going to see we had an interview together. But like, it gets to the point where it almost made me, I was elated because it's like I don't have to have this fear anymore because it was one of my top fears that I had to hold on into my body, into my light matrix after I was shown this, and it would be a person from my past that'll take everything from me. And it turned out she did. She took everything from me. But after she took everything from me, I had nothing left. So you can't take anything from me anymore. You are no longer relevant to me anymore. So you are living in the past and you're holding on to something that'll never ever exist again. And So who's really evolved and who's moving on? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Yep.
he's to the point where like the stuff that would have affected you big time back in the day, you realize it's more like an ankle bite from a mosquito. Over and
Mm.
over, it's annoying. It ain't gonna be forever. It's fine. It's whatever. But that's what I'm good at. That's what people are like us good at. We're good at realizing that the biggest things in life, they truly don't matter. Because if it was predestined to happen that way, you can't change it. So there's either evolution or de-evolution. Either you're going to go down and de-evolve and get into the addictions because of what happened to you, or punishing yourself, or blaming them, or blaming yourself. It gets to the point where you realize that your emotional reaction was the trap. You going emotional was always the wrong thing to do because it always led to the bad decisions every single time.
Right.
And to stop you, the times that you don't react emotionally anymore, it really eats them up, especially when you don't have a response. Like if a boss is screaming at you and it's that one boss that's the crappiest boss in the world, and like all you want to do is quit. But it gets to the point where if they start bitching at you and you don't have a reaction anymore and you don't even feel emotionally connected to it anymore, you're like, this conversation is going to be over in a few minutes. It's all good. I just don't give a fuck anymore. I don't care anymore, man. I don't care. Tell yourself, I don't care. And it'll change your freaking life. But you have to mean it, man. I don't care. I don't care.
Right. It's because I mean, like responding to someone who's like being an asshole or whatever. It's almost like an energetic contract in that way. If you engage with them, especially if you put emotions into it, it's like you get pulled into it, right? But if you just don't even care and you're just like observing, and you maybe respond with like a kind comment, like "Have a beautiful day," this just pisses people off even more. But you win. Like you're just like, nope, I'll just avoid that, fly right over that. No thanks. You know?
Yeah, but if you realize their reaction has nothing to do with you. And if they snapped at you for that one moment, if the higher version of you can see that, you know what? They're going through something right now. And basically I'm being used as the conduit to help lash out. And if you come to realize it's an honor to hold this space from you. I will not give into any of the energy, but I will allow you to release it from your body because it's energetic in nature, it's weight. And you kind of inadvertently created a situation that allowed them to send all that weight at you. But guess what? After they lashed out, they feel much lighter.
Yeah.
And there was a quote that changed my life one day. I read a ton of philosophy. I've been reading philosophy since I was at least 14 years old. And I can read a sentence one time and it'll change my life about how I proceed from that moment on. And I read that people in situations are powerless without your reaction. So I thought about that. I'm like, if someone's screaming in your face, they're waiting for you to respond. And no matter what your response is, you're going to lose. So don't respond. Just look at them. Don't say anything. Allow it to pass, because if they realize that if they're unloading on you and you have no reaction to it anymore, they become powerless and they start questioning, why aren't you responding to me? Does this not matter? It's just almost like you just lowered their vibration any more from the attack mode to the pathetic part, where now they're having to question your interaction with them and why you're not acting as if they're relevant. It's because you come to a point, again, people and situations are powerless without your reaction. If you just went through something shitty in life, you just lost your job, you just lost a husband. It is a very horrible thing, but you cannot change what you just went through. You cannot change it. No matter what you do, you can't go back in time. You can't go back in the past. You can't do better. You can't treat them better. What you did happened, and you're in that moment. How you react to that moment is either evolution or de-evolution.
Absolutely.
That's the dark night of the soul, facing what you are thrown at and evolving from it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's everything. Every moment is a choice point, right? And if we really are conscious and aware, um, every thought is a choice, every emotion is a choice, every response is a choice, every action is a choice. Like this is something I was shown on the medicine, like it, everything is a choice. And so if we can really be in control of our choices and navigate this thing correctly rather than being pushed along by emotional responses and unconscious responses and all this stuff until you're like, wait, how did I get here? You got to trace it back to when did I start to spiral out? And it's just like, you got to, you know, and it works like that for a while. You'll find yourself in a place, you're just like, oh man, I don't know how I got here. I have to trace it back to the root of it until you start catching yourself more and more and more. And then you stop spiraling out of control. Right. And so, yeah. Yeah. And then another thing is our frequency just being so high around certain people, it can kind of trigger things out of them. You know, if they have some unhealed process, it brings it to the surface to be released and be cleansed. And it might be, you know, chaotic or whatever, or unpleasant. And it might they might be magnetically attracted to you unconsciously just to heal a part of themselves and they don't even know it,
Mhm.
you know? And you know, if somebody has negative entities, it's going to kick that shit out to the surface real quick too, just being around you and all the protection that we have around us, you know. So yeah, and then there's a lot of negative entities on that note that just want healing. They're attracted to your light, not to try to like necessarily vampire off it, but they want to go back to the light and they're trapped and they're looking for healing, but a lot of them don't know better, so they're going to try to stick around and try to come and feed on your energy, and it's like, nope, move you along, get out of here.
It kind of
And
reminds me of
so,
like the fake friends, like the fake followers on Facebook, where you have people that hate your guts, that follow your story and they make comments and they won't leave you alone, but they pretend they're your friend. You know what I'm saying? Those kind of people, it's just like, can't you just move on with life? Like, if you don't like me, cool, that's your right. I will not judge you for disliking me because it would be lowly for me to judge you for judging me. Like, you have to realize that judgment is part of the evolution. The
yes,
moment, and it's a daily struggle. Like, you have to work on being the good person every single freaking day. And it comes every day. If you've been a good person for 13 years, that's because you made a choice every single day for 13 years to not go back on the previous path. It's not like you just become a person of love and light and understanding. It's a battle to maintain the person of the love and the light. Because, like, the old Drago, if someone would mess with me, I'd go slash all four of your tires. I would do something that'll get you so hard that you can never one up me again. And I'll do long game. You know what I'm saying? I will mess you up in ways that you never seen coming. And that's the old me. So when people mess with me, the first thought that comes to mind is, damn, I wish I can just slash your tires, because I would feel joy in knowing that the moment you leave work, you go out to your car and that spare you got under your vehicle, there's only one. You know what I'm saying? I think about it all the time of what I would have wanted to do, the previous version of me, but I
right,
never give in no matter what. That's the battle. Don't become the person you used to be, because you go back to that timeline of all that negative shit. If that's who you want to become, you have to evolve past it. Like, again, slashing a couple tires is fun. It can be fun. But look at what it can do to all that work you did. It stops in one day. All that decade or all that time you spent trying to become a better person, it takes one single act to undo it all.
right. And someone like me, I experience instant karma. If I do something out of alignment, the universe will fucking punish me right away, and
I
it
think about
never
it
fails.
constantly. I'm like, nope, don't do it. Let it
And
go.
it's
Just relax and just breathe.
right, and so it's a balancing act, but what, and like you, what you were hinting at earlier, it's not about being passive. Like we can be a sage and a warrior at the same time, but there's a balancing act to where we can do things without a karmic retribution. You know, you never go on the offense. You wait till someone crosses that line, then you have every God-given right to defend yourself, you
Do
know?
no harm, but take no shit.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, because there's a lot of people out there preaching like, just to be passive, and that's kind of why we're in the situation that we're in on this world, you know?
That's what happened in World War II. People became passive and they allowed the things to happen around them, knowingly it was morally wrong. Kind of like the guy that says, I was only doing my job. I'm like, you were helping poison the entire planet through chemtrails or through directly dumping the fluoride in the water system as your job. And you
Right,
knew what it was doing to people, but you were only doing it for a paycheck. Like, think about that. That's like being the king's person who cuts off all the heads. Yes, you know it's morally wrong, but look at that paycheck. It pays your bills. Like, if you literally say that your job and you're only doing it because it's your job, morally, you are on the wrong path. Because
right,
that's what the Nazis said in Nuremberg. They were only doing their job. Did they not know it was wrong? Yes, you knew it was wrong, but you did it because it exhilarated you. You made all this money. You was promised all this stuff. But look what you had to do it. I'm sick and tired of hearing it's my job. If you
yeah,
know
it's
damn well if people keep coming at you and that's what people tell you, and you always have to respond, I'm sorry, it's my job. If you are the guy that's going around all the cities and ticketing all the cars for parking, you know morally that is wrong because when it happens to you, it pisses you off and it's unfair. But you do it to everybody else, yet you get offended when you get a ticket yourself. Stop having that excuse. You don't have to have that job. You know it's morally wrong.
right. It's not an excuse anymore, you know? Then like these people are too scared to leave their job because of the security of it and all this stuff,
Because
but you're working for the beast system is what it comes down to, and there is a karmic retribution. And so wherever you are in your awakening, if you realize, oh man, I'm working for the bad guys, change your career. It's not too late, you know?
and most of them will never make the change. They'll do it until they are taken down and they are prosecuted and they say, "But your honor, I was just doing a job for the city. It was just my job."
Right,
They have to wait till it gets to the absolute end until you take it away from them before they're forced to even acknowledge that what they were doing was wrong. It's kind of like being
right,
like I've been a soldier my whole life, numerous lifetimes. I know being a soldier is wrong. I know taking life is wrong. Innocent people die constantly. You know how many people's lives I've had to take in the programs? More than I can count. That's not something to be proud of. I think about it all the time. It makes me break down all the time. Like, that's why I appreciate life. I appreciate ants. I appreciate blades of grass. I appreciate the insect that has a broken leg that I will try to help move out of the way so no one steps out of it because it can't move. Because no one does that for me. No one sees how important I am on like a subatomic level or on a lesser level because they always see themselves as higher. You see an animal on the side of the road or in the middle of the road that got hit, you assume the animal's dead. No one hardly ever checks. That animal can be breathing. That animal can be a female with an entire litter it's in its stomach with babies that are going to die if you don't help it. But we just look past it. We walk past atrocities. We look past people suffering and we say we're better than them. But we never even stop to even try to help them. I will help them till I freaking die, man. I will. You know how many times I've died helping people? Like, I've been on the other side of portal systems rescuing people, and I'm sitting there taking all the gunfire, dying. And I remember my body giving out a very specific life or a very specific moment where I'm laying on the floor and I can't move. And I remember I'm crying and I'm watching them go through that portal. And I know that I'm dying and my death was worth saving all those people. Even though I could not do nothing, even in that moment, I felt joy upon my death because to save a life is one of the highest honors you can ever do. And I never seen myself dying like a regular life in the life of Drago and the here and now, like old time life where I die of like old age or something like that. I've always seen myself giving my life for somebody else, saving someone's life, and then that was worth it. Because to save another is a good death. I want my death to be purposeful and to have a point and to be fulfilled in the end, even though if it took my life, look what I got to accomplish. Like I was told by an ex-girlfriend one day that I was selfish because upon dating me, anybody who dates me realizes that I like to save animals and people nonstop all the time, no matter what. And if I see a turtle crossing the road, I'll make you stop your car if I'm not driving. I will get out and I will save that turtle because I know that the car behind me probably doesn't see it. And if I don't save it then, that turtle's going to die. And that's on my conscience because I
Yeah,
realize that it's all holographic in nature. That turtle probably doesn't even exist in anyone else's perception whatsoever. But the act
right.
of it being there and passing it and it
That
possibly dying was the lesson. You always got to do right no matter what. There's been times where I'm in someone's car and there's someone pushing their car down the road. I will damn near jump out of the car at 15 miles an hour and just run and then slow down to help them push that car up that damn hill. It's just who I am. No matter what, I always have to help people because it makes me feel good, man. I don't do it for anything else other than the feeling of lighting the fire inside my heart. Saving an animal, helping some random freaking person, you just help change their life, man. You know, when I do a QHHD session, every single one I do takes everything from me. It's an emotional process to go through with somebody because people are suffering and you got to take them through the dark night of the soul or their death or like losing somebody or something. But like all that energy I put in that session, it's worth it the moment I'm done. And I'm driving away and I just felt all this happiness. And like, I just helped this chick that lost her leg from a motorcycle crash remove a lot of that physical pain and help her understand why she had to lose her leg and how it was her fault. And the crash wasn't random. Do you know what that does for people when you can show them the truth in something so serious? You can change their life. And it helps change my life. There's times I'll walk away, I'll start crying because it was that powerful to help somebody.
yeah, absolutely. You know, and that's living your
Because again, no one wants to help you, but if you can help somebody else, that is what life is worth living about, man.
well, we're down here in a world where we're of a different frequency, and not to come off in an egotistical way, but we are kind of anomalies in this world, and so it's hard for us to see other people like ourselves around us, right? But it's your soul's purpose. You're coming down here to be of service. Like you're literally on a mission from the higher realms, and so that satisfaction that you're feeling is you're just like, wow, I'm living in alignment with universal law and creator source, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, right? And you get into that flow state, and so like I can also relate to having like empathy for every sentient being everywhere. Like I love animals, I love nature, like the signs, they talk to me all the time, and like the holographic reality of that, like if you see that opportunity present itself, like yeah, go move that turtle out of the road, that's for you, that's an opportunity, right? And then like another thing I wanted to touch on is I can also see that you like all those warrior lifetimes that you and I have experienced, like the karmic retribution from that and the stuff that we had to do that was causing karma and taking life and all that stuff, having to work through that karma has been soul shattering, and the fragmentation, and it is beyond
Exactly.
words, the process of cleaning that up. And so we've like warfare is not cool, it's horrific. Okay, and then you move into the mode of the sage, like I'm here on a spiritual evolution, right? But that warrior part of you is still there too. Like you don't become passive, you just operate in absolute alignment. You do not breach um universal law ever again, because everything is so sacred, and so like the trauma that I came in with was unreal, man. I've had hairs in my auric field from swords being ran through my rib cage and dying in battle, and like I'll wake up with bruises and being pulled on to craft and going and doing missions and all this stuff, and I only remember bits and pieces of it, like, and this is an ongoing thing. And then I wanted to touch on this too. This is something that I've been kind of piecing together. There's been times where I've been on craft, and it's my a higher version of myself, like wearing a suit like, you know, like an actual suit like that everyone else is wearing, and, you know, piloting craft and being behind controls, and like I'm working there and I know exactly what I'm doing. But then there's other times where I've been pulled on craft and it's my human self. And then it's like the teaching start and the learning starts. And so I realized we have different layers of ourself that get pulled up, and it's just like it's really hard to integrate and make sense of it all, you know, because there's like all these different versions of ourselves and all these different timelines, and it's all happening simultaneously. And yeah, this is just a thought that I kind of connected recently. I'm like, wow, I'm experiencing different versions of myself. And then there's other ETs that I've met that are me. They're another facet of my soul that's playing a different role, coming down through time, or to, you know, to assist me. And so like, so I've realized people are like, oh, are you Pleiadian, are you Syrian, or whatever. It's like, well, I have connections to all this stuff because I've been all of it. And so I've connected with, you know, part like some of the races I'm most connected to are the golden lion beings. And they're originally from Lyra, but Lyra's gone now. It's all been destroyed pretty much. And so now they're from Sirius, and they're the golden lion beings, and they're 17 foot tall, and they're the protectors. You know, and then there's ones that are white, and then there's the jaguar beings. And like they're literally around me all the time. Like I can see them on my peripheral. I see them turn into light orbs and move around. Like when I open sacred space in ceremony, like they show up. Like is and having that around me has lit all the warfare has just stopped. Just like I have peace, and it's beautiful. And then I'm also very connected to the Arcturians, and then the Pleiadians, and also the Orion Council of Light. And so that's another thing. Like Orion's a huge system, you know, and a lot of people want to say, oh, everything in
You
Orion's
know,
bad.
the name of the universe that we live in is actually called Orion, and it has nothing to do with the Orion constellation.
Really? No, I didn't know that.
Member of the Orion constellation is the entry point to this part of the universe, one of the main gates. The
Hmm.
entire universe. Universe means one. Uni is one. So we're like a bubble. And the name of this universe is Orion. So it was
Interesting.
a battle of Orion, the Orion Wars. It wasn't just a battle of a gate.
Is it literally ripples out everything that happens, you know, and especially on the Earth too, and Orion. These are like major points where there's, you know, the things that happen there affect everything else. And so like a lot of people want to view Orion as, oh, this is where a lot of the negative races are from. And it's true, but there's also a lot of positive stuff there. Orion is a huge constellation, and then there's a group called the Orion Council of Light that is comprised of many different beings. A lot of them are human looking, and you know they fought in the wars for a very long time. And like I've also had a lot of contact with them. That's been an ongoing thing too. And so like when I talk about this stuff, when I talk about Orion, sometimes people trip out. When I talk about the Anunnaki, sometimes people trip out because most people think the Anunnaki is all bad, and a big part of it is if we're referring to the Nibiru side of things, but not all of it is. And like furthermore, we have their genetics in us. So however which way we feel about it, you know, this is something that we have to work through and heal these distortions in the genetics. And we have, you know, the 22 star races that hybridized us before that, and then we
Exactly
go
what I was
all the
talking
way
about
back to live, you
earlier.
know. And so like I have memories of, you know, before the whole Anunnaki thing, and so yeah, man, we're ancient. You know, I am heavily involved in what's going on in this solar system and here on the Earth, and I'm my oversoul is playing many different roles through many different layers, all the way down to this human experience. And I'm not here to like talk about myself or really get into all that, but the more I realize, it's just like a lot of people are like that. It's not just me, you know, because as the soul stream goes up through all these different layers, we exist all the way up. You know, just to be in the human experience, it takes a very ancient soul to be here. Most people just have their memory wiped and they forget who they are, you know? And so that's another thing. Like once we activate this DNA and we truly go through the self mastery and self realization process, we have the ability to connect all the way back to creator source more than a lot of these other races do too. And that's part of the reason why some of the Anunnaki don't like us, because once we're fully activated in our DNA, we can surpass them with our abilities, and they see us as a threat.
We're a threat because they gave us so many superpowers from all these genetics they gave us. Like I said, these 22 other programs, we had other genetics from other programs and other races. So imagine if they weren't blocking all of our powers. And if you think about it, if there's a technology that is in charge of blocking all those powers, we need to take that technology out. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
this is what we're trying to do in the SSP, because I fortunately got to escape a lot of it, and I was rescued in Monarch, and I joined a group called Merge, and we've been kind of going against a lot of the stuff that was done to us and the entire planet, because the prototype of what they're doing it throughout a lot of planets. It's not just Earth that is this hijacked. They're attempting to do this in a lot of planets. And to help you understand, like, if people have problems understanding that the person they are here and now on the Earth, and that but they can also exist on another ship controlling an entire fleet, like, how do you think we got here? We have the power to project ourselves in a lesser density. Let's say that, let's say you and I are on the same team. We're part of the same side, and we run different fleets, part of the same good guys, right? Imagine that if you realized that you couldn't attack the problem from the fifth density or the fourth density, but you realized you had to go down, into the second or third density and put a part of yourself there to help undo things and control structures to eventually get up to the density you're at. But you can't, again, you can't just do it from the highest point of view. You got to go all the way down, and you got to send parts of yourself. So, like, the person you are now is a small percentage of your totality of your soul. And a lot of us are here as only a small percentage of ourselves, because we're literally fighting these wars right now on our ships. And a part of us is here to have a specific mission to help with the overall big picture. And that's what the real truth is. So, like, the person we think we are, the who I think I am, who you think you are, we're not all. We're only like, imagine having 150 marbles located in your hand all at the same time, but every marble is you. But then the hand holding all the marbles is also you. And you can take a single marble, put it in a timeline, which is you, but now you get to accomplish a little mission there that's going to help this marble that you put in this other timeline in this other density complete that mission. And all these little small things you did affected on the highest level of the dimension you're in at the highest. So we truly don't know what anything is. We don't know what the matrix is. We don't know what real reality is, because, again, the veil of forgetfulness. But, like, that's the power we have. We can take a small part of ourselves, throw it here, throw it there simultaneously, but then get the totality of those lessons in evolution all at the same time. So it's really interesting because, like you said, how do you make sense of all of it? That's why Dolores Cannon called it the convoluted universe, part of her first set of books, because, like, everything we thought we knew, we truly know nothing. If we think the answer is two, the answer isn't two. It's not even a number. It's a perception of what we think the answer is. So, like, when you're presented all these other ideas that contradict everything you ever knew, it takes the evolutionary to take a new piece of knowledge, and it changes the entire paradigm instantaneously. Because I'm like you, like, I'm a Taurus. When they say you're a Taurus, you're stubborn. And I realized, I'm like, that's throwing a label on who I am. And for the longest time, I'm like, I am stubborn. I am hard to move. I am immovable. It's hard to change my mind. But the moment I thought about it one time, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be stubborn. I'm going to be the yes man, just like in the movie Jim Carrey, where He was the guy that got invited everywhere by everything, and he always said no. He always found an excuse. No, I'm busy, or no, I can't do that. So I realized I'm like, I was preventing all these experiences because I was stubborn. So now I'm going to be the yes man. You want to go do this? Oh, I don't have time. But you know what? We're going to go do it. Let's go do it. I want to go to that Limp Bizkit concert. I want to go to that Korn concert or whatever. I would never go do it because I don't have the time. But you know what? I've always wanted to see them, and I went to see them. Like, I'm going to go see Korn in like 2 weeks. I just seen Limp Bizkit like 2 weeks ago. It was freaking amazing. I was I was listening to Limp Bizkit growing up in my teens, like 20 years old, 18 years old, and like we waste our entire life watching all this cool stuff happen around us, and we let it all just happen and we don't join it anymore, man. Like, be the yes man. Start doing the things you wouldn't normally do because that prevents evolution. This prevents you from having all these cool experiences and meeting all these people and networking and finding other fucking soul family. It's just, I'm not going to be stubborn anymore, So you can make a choice. Just because it's in your genetics doesn't mean it's who you are. If you have a genetic issue where your dad had diabetes and his dad had diabetes, they teach you that you're going to get diabetes. But according to epigenetics and the thought process, you don't have to have diabetes. You can choose not to have diabetes by not believing it, by knowing it's not a possibility. And it's real. It's a phenomenon.
It's
That's it.
absolutely real. The power of beliefs, people, and then people want to doubt it, and doubt just throws a wrench into the whole program. But once a person realizes how powerful their beliefs are, once they start manifesting and showing up in the world, you realize, oh, wow, like it's all ego mind identity too is a limiting thought factor. Like you're thinking, I'm this being, this is my story, I have these conditions, this is my past, when really it's just like, how about we wipe the slate clean and heal the subconscious and throw all that programming out and then reprogram it the correct way and see things change. And like you were saying, epigenetics, like you don't have to have a diagnosis. And so, somebody telling you, a doctor telling you, you have this condition, and you believing that will literally manifest that in someone who doesn't have that condition.
Yes.
Right. And that is real documented proof, like placebo effects, but it's a real thing. And so if someone can really start to go back into their subconscious and analyze their own belief system of their life and realize where the underlying doubt is, like, oh yeah, I'm trying to manifest this, oh, but then your mind's like, that'll never happen. Fucking throw that out. Okay, how about, yeah, I expect miracles to happen in my life because this is a
Dude,
holographic reality, and I'm a fractal of creator
I
source.
expect magic. I'm a magical being and I expect magic, man. Even though people don't believe in magic, we both know that magic is real. And magic is really just, what's the word? It's manifesting. Like, you're creating something from nothing, from the ether, by choosing it to be real, and it manifests literally. And that's why you have magical people and you have muggles. Like, I see most of the world as muggles. The whole Harry Potter terminology, where a non-magical human, a person that's not connected to source or to the planets or to the cosmos or stuff like that. And I'm trying to awaken the muggles. So that's why we're so powerful, because we can talk to a muggle and a single sentence will change the way they think about life. They're like, you said this one thing, and from that one point on, I kind of changed what I did in life. It's
Yep.
almost like you're activating the magic inside them, where they no longer have to just be the muggle, and they can see that the magic exists within themselves. And they themselves were the reason why it wasn't magical, because they never believed in it.
Right. And we have the ability to plant those seeds that will bloom at a certain point and ignite that soul spark in people. And we can be that catalyst. And it's not us waking them up. It's just, I am a vessel of creator. When I get out of my own way and become the hollow bone for creator source to work through, it acts as a catalyst for other people to awaken. And I've realized it's not me. It's me getting out of my own way and letting the higher force work through me, you know? And so, like, me talking about myself and all this stuff, it's not an ego thing. Like it's just, if it's flow
Sucks. We
state.
have to clarify that these days, where we can't just talk about ourselves and that power we feel inside, and we have to also say, "Oh, by the way, it's not my ego talking." It sucks that we are there in humanity where we can't just acknowledge the power that's inside of us, and we can bring that forward without having to throw that caveat in these days. And that, I feel, that's part of the programming, and that prevents us from walking through the doors that'll change our lives. Sometimes
Right.
you have to just say it without throwing that caveat in. This is not my ego speaking. You got to speak in power. And sometimes by not throwing that caveat in, it makes it more real. It actually grounds it in the moment of it being real. And I think in the future, hopefully 1,000 years from now, we realize that the ego was part of the traps, and that prevented us from truly evolving into what we could have been, because we wasted so many eons of life on this earth by following for the programming, while realizing that we were also the construct breakers. We could have broke the programming at any time, but the point is, we chose the programming. We chose the TV, we chose the music, we chose everything they dangled in front of us. And then we say we're better than somebody else. Like, no one is better than anybody. Everybody is equal. And the reason why I'm considered an anomaly, like you said earlier, especially in the military and the programs, is I have a problem with people saying that they are have a higher authority above me. Kind of like a general giving me orders. I'm like, when I was a commander, when I was a general, when I was a king, the reason why I was such a good person is because I cared about my people. I cared about my soldiers. I cared about what would happen to them. I wouldn't just be like, okay, the campaign we're going up against, it's going to take at least 10,000 of our people that's going to die. I would not want to be in that campaign where I've got to literally have the karma of 10,000 souls on my mind, you know? But
Yeah.
if you could be the guy where you don't care if it was 100,000 people, I never want to become that person ever. And I think that's what we're here to do. We're here to show people that you don't have that kind of power. You don't have the right to send that many people to their death for your own gain.
Right.
It could be gaining a new technology. It could be gaining a forward operating base in another solar system. But like, look what you had to do it, man. Like, I don't know. I will always defend life. I will always be punished for defending life, but it's who I am, and it is what it is, man.
Well, I haven't brought this up to many people, but since you brought that up too, I had a past life where I was a king back here in medieval times. And the whole kingship is a thing from the Anunnaki. The
All of
whole
it, yeah.
the hierarchical system it's their system.
Mhm.
The court systems, all of this stuff. And it was in a time with a lot of warfare. And even though I was a good person, I accumulated a lot of karma, and I had to deal with that backlash through many different warrior lives, and through speaking the truth and getting thrown in dungeons and starving to death. That's another one that really took some clearing, because I was so mad at God when I died. I was like, how could you let this happen? And I starved to death, and I remember the point of leaving my body. And so in this lifetime, I've always just inhaled my food, and everyone's looking at me like,
Me too,
are you all
man.
right? I'm like, yeah, that's just how I eat. What do you mean? Like, and I've always been like that. And I have to catch myself and slow myself down eating, and so some of these things stick around. Um, and then I guess another thing I wanted to touch on with the ego, I guess another way I could describe it would be like, when my little self gets out of the way and I become the hollow bone, then Big Seth is able to come through. And so it is me. It's a higher part of me. And so, like, the way I can explain this is, when I'm in ceremony and I'm singing, um, I've had the ancestors show up and be like, "Hey, if you're gonna sing this song, like this Lakota song," he's like, "you need to get out of your own way and realize that you're too much in your lower self, your lower mind ego." And I literally got out of the way, and like, then the music and my back straightened, and the music started coming out strong, and like just the energy behind it. And I was like, whoa, so this is what this is the hollow bone. It's like when your lower self gets out of the way, it allows the higher self to come through. And that's what we truly are and what we're capable of, you know.
I like
So
to describe what we are as like a TV. We, all the channels of who we are all exist within that TV. And you can say that one side of that is the highest version of yourself and one side of that is the lowest version of yourself, but you have the ability to tune into each station and every person is you, but there is a higher version of you that you're unaware of. Like we think we're the totality of everything we've ever learned in this single life and what we've ever been through, but we're not. We're only a frequency of the entire spectrum of what we are in frequency. So like the 3D now, you, Seth, it's only one specific frequency out of the entire bandwidth of what you exist in. And that bandwidth determines what density you're in, all that stuff. But like, if people could just understand that, it's hard to put it into words, man. Human words are so hard because like I'm so used to telepathy. I can just show you this to your mind and I can show you all this. So like to put it into words has always been tough for me. I don't know if I can put it into words. Some things it's just hard to collate and make it make sense, I guess.
yeah, I understand. Well,
But
we
like the
can.
side effect of being a soldier, that's how you know you're really a soldier because we eat fast. Because we're in the field, man. You don't have time to sit back and watch TV and like take an hour to eat your meal and like savor each part. Like you give us a meal, we'll snarfle it down really fast. And then when we're done, we're content. We'll hang out with you, we'll stay, we'll watch that movie. We don't need no more food. We're good. Just if you can eat that thing in under 5 minutes, that's ideal. Anything after 5 minutes, you're wasting time. So always when I meet other soldiers, I'll ask them that. How do you eat your food?
I never correlated to it to that. That's interesting that you mentioned that.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
like soldiers in the here and now, non-SSP, I'm talking about like Earth soldiers, Army, Navy, Marines on Earth. See what they're like when they leave combat and they come back to the real world. Observe how they eat. They don't eat like regular people. They just you have 3 minutes to eat a whole meal before you're about to be deployed. You eat it as fast as possible. You're like, I'm good, man. You're done. You're like, I'm ready to go. But I think about that all the time. I think about how fast I eat, and I think about it literally constantly. It's just like I can't just relax and savor food. Like I have to just whatever that is. I'll be consistent. If I'm watching a movie, I'm just like I'm constantly eating until it's empty. And when I'm done, I'm like, okay, good, I can watch TV.
Right.
So it's a really weird phenomenon that I always found kind of comical, but that lets you really know the level of someone's programming with being a soldier. And it also can be a prerequisite to having past lives as a soldier. And no one thinks about that. They don't think about how fast they eat. Like, I am so freaking programmed, man, that all my house plates are military prison school trays in plastic with all the segregated sections and all the different sizes for the silverware. I am so programmed that I eat out of freaking MK Ultra military trays for Christ. But hey, they come in custom colors now. So it's kind of like in the programs you have like metal trays or something like that, but now you're like, hey, I feel kind of at home, even though I messed up and I was programmed.
Customization to it.
So you find kind of a joy in it. And when I look at those plates, I kind of laugh at myself. And I'm coming up with a series called "Do You Want to Know How I Was MK Ultra?" And it's kind of like the Jeff Foxworthy joke. You know how like you want to how know you'll know you're a redneck. I have this entire line of jokes for MK Ultra, and it's just comical. It's stuff for other experiencers, other people being in the programs, and they can bring joy and funness to something so serious. You know, like you want to know how I'm MK Ultra? Because sometimes when I'm doing my fight moves and I'm practicing and you really get into it seriously, an Ultra kicks in and you beat down what you're doing. You're like, whoa. Something kicks in and the soldier kicks in. You're like, yo, why so serious? I was just doing some katas here, man. But it's a real thing, man. It's just so I find it funny. so to find humor in something so serious, that's
We
how
have
you
to have
clean your
humor.
mind. If we did not have humor, man, the people that I know that are soldiers on the programs without humor,
Yeah,
they are
you won't.
they are vindictive, they are left-brained. You can consider them reptilian to the absolute max. I'm talking about the bad reptilians, and
Yeah,
like calculated and I don't know. You got to have humor, man. If you can't joke, I don't know if I can be your friend, because it's like you're too freaking serious for me. Like, I'm known to be really serious online. I talk about really serious subjects, but like everybody that knows me personally, I am a freaking comic. I am constantly telling jokes, dad jokes, finding humor and everything, and it's just funny. And if you can't be that person, man,
same.
bless you. Bless you for being so serious all the freaking time and never turning it off, man. Good Lord.
Right. You know, and I think the trauma has helped create that humor because I can find humor in like anything, you know, and it helps lighten the mood, right? And like life's, you can't live life too serious, man. You got to find the humor and stuff. And like laughter is medicine, you know, and that's that's I agree with that. I wanted to kind of change subjects real quick because some things popped into mind when you were talking about MK Ultra. Um, Back when I was going through all those attacks with all the military stuff, like I was also being heavily attacked by the um some of the hive mind, tall grays, and like different insectoid races. And man, that stuff is nasty. And so there is a an alien component to the whole MK Ultra programs. And man, there's whew, some gnarly stuff that I've
Even
had
the
to witness.
Anunnaki. Anunnaki is part of the programmers in a lot of the programs. And a lot of people,
Absolutely.
they don't talk about that. It's just like certain people say the Anunnakis left the solar system. They left the planet. The Draco left. They are
No,
delusional. If they are,
they've never left. They've been here the whole time.
they've never left. And they're like, well, the physical ones aren't here. If they're anything, they're hybrids. I'm like, you don't think that there's hybrids and the original being still here? Like the gods of the Bibles and the gods of the Sumerian tablets, a lot of them are still freaking alive
Yeah.
because their lifespan, that's part of their normal lifespan, man. Can you imagine living like 100,000 years as part of your natural lifespan? And that's normal. So when you meet a human and its lifespan is less than 100 years, you're like, Jesus, 100 freaking years? That's like, I'm blinking, and when I open my eyes, you're dead. Like, that's how fast that happens. It's like, that sucks if you think about it in retrospect. It's like, if we're here to do so much, we only get the lifespan of a gnat to really do it against
Right.
beings that have the life of a tree, you know? Could be thousands of years old.
You know, we were genetically downgraded by the Enlil group specifically. You know, they cut our lifespan down and really lowered our DNA. And you know, there's another group like so I've met a lot of these beings face to face, and I've met the Elohim Light Council and the Dark Council, and then there's two different light councils. I started having interface with this one group, and they would show up like six or seven of them at a time, and they would like teach me stuff and heal me, and it was like all amazing experiences for a very long time. And then I started to meet this other group that was they were appearing like they were light, but they were of the Enlil bloodline, and they were not too nice. And there was a lot of trickery, a lot of lies, and you know they're the group that are currently um, in charge of things going on in the earth, and you know the dialectic between the light and dark council that's both controlled by Marduk and that whole thing. But there are a group of Elohim beings that, and the way I can describe this is like for instance, in the Vedic texts, they talk about um, like Vishnu, for example, and this has nothing to do with the Elohim Council. I'm just giving an example, like Vishnu, and he has all these different avatars, right? And like one of them, it would like the fourth avatar would be Narasimha, like the lion beings, you know. And so it's like the more you step it up in dimensional layers, you go back to a form that can take all these different forms. And that's kind of like the Elohim. It's like before they branch out into all these like physical forms playing all these roles. And I've been on craft before, and I've seen them move, and I've seen all these like overlays. And I was at first I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And I thought like, "What are these overlays?" And like, there's this female being, and one of them was like this old lady who was almost like a skeleton, and it was fucking terrifying. But like other ones were like beautiful, and you know, I realized it was Doom Body, which is like one of the 10 Mahadevas, you know, or Mahadevi. And so it's like eh, it, there's a lot of different. It's not like people want to paint a picture like, or how should I say this? I've been trying to integrate these experiences for a very long time, but there is a group of these Elohim councils that are not aligned with the current stuff that's going down on the world. But the majority of the Anunnaki are absolutely fallen, and they're the reason the world is in the current situation it's in. Okay, and then I guess the point I'm getting at is I've had interface with them for a while, and that's when things got really fucking complicated, and I had to take a step back and be like, whoa, I only work with like specific beings, and I really take note of the frequency they're in, because a lot of them are full of shit and they're liars, you know. So you have to test and approve every spirit that shows up, you know, and real and test them, because a lot of them, there's a lot of trickery when it gets into those groups.
Speaking
um
of trickery, earlier you were talking about how when certain beings come in, they come in as love and light, and you feel really great. You have to realize also, man, the technology that some of these groups have, they will come in that way. You'll be 100% convinced. You'll be blissful and love and crying and joy. And it's really technology and overlays.
yeah,
So we've got to get to a point where we can discern even through technology, because if you assume if like the Pleiadians show up and you're feeling all blissed out and you're like, oh my God, they're my soul family, blah, blah, blah. It might not even be Pleiadians. They can be using a projection that changes their entire structure of their body, and the feelings you're feeling are not even real. It's all technology. They're activating your hormones, they're releasing dopamines, and it's all technology based. So that's one thing that a lot of people don't talk about. And I had to
right,
figure that out through QHHT, because I start with QHHT, you're allowed to ask unlimited questions to basically the universe. And you can figure out what the truth is and what the false reality is. And that's why I love QHHT, because I can talk to anyone's higher self, and their higher self's directly tapped into the Akashic records. So like I've always wanted to tell people about that. Just learn learn protections. Put
yeah,
protections up even around the ones of light, because sometimes you're being manipulated, and you openly let them in your energy because of the feelings you feel. But the moment you did, you're effed, because we're not designed to know what is real and what is not real, what is legit and what is not legit, if it's coming as love and light. Does that make sense?
yeah, it does. And you know, I can speak from experience, because for a while I was interfacing with these two groups, and the imposter ones, it's such a similar thing. Like they show up, they know what to say, they activate these feelings of like bliss and stuff, but it doesn't get to the high authentic frequencies that the real ones do. Like when the real ones show up, there's just a soul recognition right away. You're just like, oh, yep, that's them. And when the other ones show up, it's like they're trying to do that, but it's not quite to the same extent. And the way to only really discern the difference between the two, I think, is to have to go through those experiences, because there's nothing that I can say that can prepare someone for that, to really hone those abilities. But if you are going outside and sky watching and looking for craft and asking all these questions and giving your power away to an external source, that opens up an opportunity for anything to jump in and be like, oh, I'm this being, you know, I'll play that role and mess with you. right? And so you got to realize that there is a fallen group that's running our government and tied in with it very heavily for, you know, most of our government. There are light factions working with our government as well, and they're trying to cover all bases, and so they have a mimicry program going of like the actual benevolent star races out there too, to try to confuse people, you know. And so when people talk about the Galactic Federation of Light, that is a false program that's running. It's an empire of many different beings that are false. And there is a real Galactic Federation of Free Worlds out there that is, you know, does have our best interest in mind and freedom in mind, but they're not here to do the work for us. They're waiting for, they really honor free will. They're waiting for us to step up to the occasion and to take our sovereign power back, and then they will assist us, you know, and they are assisting us as well. They're kind of holding things in balance, and this war has been going on for a while, but everyone's looking around to be like, what are they going to do? Because it's literally up to us. We're at ground level. This is the only way to incarnate in here to change, to make change. You know, you can't do it from external and like rob everyone of a karmic lesson. You know.
Yeah, because you can imagine if they all came down right now and they started showing themselves in the skies and they came to help us, you know what the human population would do? They would react really negatively, even if they came down to help us, because that's why the programmers have programmed an invasion, because they knew that the good guys wanted to come in to help. And that's why since at least the 50s, they have programmed into us that all ETs are bad, and they always want to come here for our resources or to enslave us or to take the planet or to blow it up and all that shit. And like, it sucks because there's so many beautiful beings out there that don't have animosity, they don't have negative thoughts like that, and they would, it's like a lot of the planets I've been on, man, I've seen some of the most innocent beings, man, just have their lights extinguished because that's the mission. And like, it was Courtney Brown and the Farsight Institute that did a remote viewing project, and they found out that the world's governments are not in control. The ETs are in control of the world's governments, and they're preventing all this from happening. So it's not like the humans are trying to acknowledge the ET existence. It's more like the ETs are preventing us from figuring out that they're actually real, you know?
Yeah.
And if we did find that out, we would think we're under a damn invasion. So imagine shooting at ETs that are here to help you. And that can get really bad really fast because, again, they program that as any invasion scenario where they arrive, you start shooting at them. And that's what it's been throughout history. They have all these classified documents that a lot of times these crafts came down, the human population were literally trying to kill them out of fear, no matter if they're good or bad or not. It's just like that automatic go-to would be to kill these alien visitors, you know. And we've got to get to the point where we have to understand that good or bad, they are us, period. And not all beings are bad, not all beings are good. So you, again, it's discernment and trying to figure out, just like you said, you have to go through the experiences of possibly being under technologies of love and light to know the difference and to develop the baseline for what is actually true. And through that own inner work that you did, you're now damn near impenetrable for some of these technologies because your soul has figured out that some of this is not authentic, and therefore has put in protections on a subconscious level that prevent them from even interacting with you anymore, or to the extreme. Like, the thing that woke me up the most was 2016. I did my first ayahuasca trip, and I ended up doing ayahuasca 4 times in one weekend. And that's a big deal because most people, when they do ayahuasca, they might do it once over a weekend. I was the first person to accept the cup. I was the first person to accept the follow-up cup. And like, I'm the kind of guy that pushes myself to the max. And that's when I truly, really woke up. And what I mean by that was I was shown
my connection to everything that exists. And one of those things I was shown was I was eating myself, being a meat eater. I was shown that in order to evolve past the animalistic natures of duality, you have to understand that other animals and beings are you. Therefore, it's not authorized. It's only authorized on the lower levels of the densities to consume each other, because that's what it is. It's every man for himself. Everything eats everything. But at the highest dimensions, we don't have physical food source. We don't even have physical bodies. We don't need any of that stuff. The highest realms were non-physical. And then
Right.
we come and down into the physical body, and that's where all the problems start. But like, it was the ayahuasca that showed me that the cows I pass every day are me. And it just got to me one day, and I realized that after I did the ayahuasca, when I was shown my connection to that, like, number one, I never ate an animal again after the ayahuasca. It wasn't like a transition point. The one of the prerequisites for ayahuasca, they say, is to not eat meat for 2 weeks before you do ayahuasca, because the enzymes and proteins in the meat can affect the ability of the medicine. So I didn't eat meat for 2 weeks. And just not eating meat for 2 weeks, after about a week of not eating meat, I was just like, that's it? Like, I wasn't craving it like I thought I would. And I'm like, interesting. And then, like, now it's been 9 years. I haven't ate meat, but it changed my life, because even though I could suffer health effects from not eating meat because my blood type or my body type might need meat, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter. I would rather die as a skeleton and wither away and slowly die than ever consume another being again. Because again, like, it's my own experience with what I've been forced to do in the programs and take life. I made a final stand, and I'm like, I'm never doing it again if I don't have to. Like, if I'm under orders in a program and I'm in a battle zone, then like, you don't have a choice. But like, now I know that I do have a choice. And now I know that I can spare my opponent's life if there's a higher, if I can teach that one being that me sparing its life, even in combat where I knew it could kill me, that can start a chain of events for that own soul's evolution to then realize that, you know what, this isn't right. I don't have to kill my enemy, and like, my enemy is me. And my enemy contains the same fear that I have, and I am their enemy to them. Therefore, what's the difference between me and them? And it's all perception. So I don't know, man. It's just, that's what I've learned. And like, the medicine really changed my life. I don't know what I would have done without that, but I do remember that's when my slow motion vision was activated permanently, and it never turned off. I had a lot of it happen during my bike crash in 2005, but it wasn't on 24 hours a day. And when I did the ayahuasca, my last trip that weekend, I remember going to the fire pit after people are coming down and there's a big fire pit. And I remember looking into the flame for the first time, and I seen that the flame was alive and it was conscious and it was sentient.
Yeah.
And I remember not blinking for at least 45 minutes. I just stared at this fire for at least 45 minutes. And I seen the power of what life really is, and how we take it for granted that we think we created fire, like, for example, but fire comes from its own density. It exists as a body in its own existence. And we alchemically did a magic procedure to pull it into our density through time and space. And if we don't power the fire with consciousness or a physical energy to keep it going, it goes back to its density. So that was extremely profound for me to find out that, number one, we didn't invent shit. And then fire is its own element. It's conscious as you are. And it was talking to me when it was flaming up in that fire pit.
Yeah, I work with the elements a lot now, actually. I have them on in shot glasses on my altar, you know, each of the different elements in a candle. And then it's interesting because I've had kind of the mirrored experience as far as diet, because I used to be vegan and it was just not working for me. And you know, I've sat in hundreds of ceremonies over many, many years, and ayahuasca actually told me um, that I need to eat meat for my body type. And I still didn't listen. I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to eat animals. And then in another ceremony, the animals showed they wanted recognition. Like I was brought to this place and they showed me they wanted recognition. And I saw the whole circle of life and how plants are sentient too. And it's all me. And I was just like, thank you for providing me with nourishment. And I don't like the fact that I have to eat meat at this point in time. Maybe that'll change at some point. But my process has pushed me back into meeting, possibly to heal any deficiencies. I'm not quite sure, but I'm not cemented in any one way of thinking, right? I'm always open to change and whatever guidance I do get, you know. And I realize that everyone is different and every body type is different, and so it's just whatever works for a person, you know.
Yeah, like a lot of people when they get to know me, they know I'm vegetarian, and like people are weird when you're vegetarian. They always got jokes. Like, you know what vegetarians don't have? Meat eater jokes. We don't have it. We don't make fun of your lifestyle. You'll never hear it. But you know what meat eaters do? They constantly make fun of us. Constantly. It never ends. And it's just like we're to the point where we're programmed to make fun of people for making conscious decisions like that, right? But like I've never judged anybody. If I dated somebody who ate meat, I'm not worried about them eating meat. I don't give them crap about eating meat. I don't let them not cook food. Like, so it's my own individual journey. Even though I know more than likely it will cause my body to break down over time and it can kill me. My soul tells me still not to do it, only because it's my own evolution and what I've been through. You know what I'm saying? It's just because I think about meat every day. Like it's kind of like being a lion in the wild. And then one day you look around and be like, look at all this cuddly food. I mean, look at all this cuddly companions. And like, you know what? I think I'm going to start eating grass because I don't want to eat any more cuddly companions. You know what that does to a lion? It really messes you up because you're walking around looking at all the cuddly creatures, and the first thought was food. And then your thought, no, 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 friend. And I think with my own evolution, the longer I do that, remember, it's making that daily choice to show you who you're going to become and who you are. Even though you want to slash those tires and eat that meat, for me personally, it's the old version of me. It's just, I don't know, it's through my own evolution. And like, there is no wrong or right evolution. It's just choice. It's just what I want to do with my own life, even though, again, I've met a ton of people who eat meat now that were vegetarian where they almost died
Yeah.
due to not eating meat. So I know it's a very, very dangerous ground, but like, I don't know, taking so many lives and just see the connection to everything, man. Like it's to me, it was transcendental. And it doesn't matter if I die and wither, because again, it's until I'm no longer in this body, I knew that I did what I had to do to maintain the compassionate part.
Well, good for you. You know, maybe I will do that again. I don't really know what's
Just
in front of me,
think about like
but
plants. Remember how we were shown through ayahuasca that plants are conscious too, and when you eat them, there's no difference between eating an animal. But with plants, a lot of plants we eat, we don't kill the plant. We leave the root. So it
yeah,
constantly lives, reproduces. It's kind of like you find out that a tree produces fruit for beings around it. So eating the fruit is not technically killing the tree. I mean, does that make sense? So
I,
like it sucks because even all the vegetables I eat, I understand that they were alive and I acknowledge that. I do two different prayers every time I eat. And I acknowledge that being as if it is a living being, because it's literally a being. And I ask for its forgiveness. I thank it. I tell him I'm sorry. And then I bring in the four directions, the four elements, and all the energies, and I endue it with source light so that any harm that was in it is now negated and sent back to source for transmutation. And the only thing that passes through my body is forgiven and thankful and purposeful at that point, if that makes sense. Like even water, the people ask me, I've heard people say, what are you thankful the most about in life? And the first thing I always think about is water. Because in the programs, you don't voluntarily get to drink water when you want. And when you're on these other planets, you don't have water laying around. When you're on ship, you're drinking reconstituted pee. So like when I'm here on Earth in the life of Drago, I really am thankful for water, because like we are water. Water's conscious. And like I am thankful for the most basic life principle that exists. And I'm thankful for the thankfulness of it, that I can acknowledge something so insignificant that people would think is insignificant, but like to me, it's everything. And water's beautiful. Like, I don't know. How do you put it into words, man? Like,
Well, like you've seen all the experiments about how water holds memory. And like water is a very unique substance that no other molecule has the properties of in creation. You know, the things that it's able to do, no other substance can do. And the fact that we are made up of water speaks volumes too. And so it just goes to show that if you can put thoughts into a petri dish and flash freeze it and have repeatable results depending upon your emotions and thoughts and frequency, well, what do you think it's doing to your own body, right? And so it's one of the main elements. Like water is very important, as well. Like I've been working with the elements quite a bit lately. Instead of getting too complicated in any practice, I'm just getting back to the basics of like elements, creator source, my own sovereignty, and just like the basics, right? Rather than trying to overcomplicate things, and it's working a lot. And it's like things are unlocking and the flow state is happening.
it shows you how humble you are, because if you can be thankful for the most basic things in life instead of being thankful for, thank you for the money. Thank you for the rich ass house and my 24-inch wheels. Like, that's not really understanding what life is giving you, because again, it's only based on material, like material is the devil, as Bobby Boucher's mom would say. So I think just going inside and just appreciating the things around you, like being able to step barefoot on grass, to feel what it's like to be on something beautiful and to lay on something that'll hold you, like that's what life is about, man. Like I live on a lake. And the thing I love about my lake is all the animals. That's all I think about is the animals and the life. I go outside, I do my plants, I water my flowers, and I'm just looking for life, insects and birds and spiders. And like, I love to watch them look at me. Like whenever I get buzzed by a bee or a wasp, if it passes me, I'll automatically look it in the eyes. And no one thinks about that. The moment you do, if it sees you looking at it, it'll back up in fear. You're like, oh shit, Godzilla's looking at me. I didn't just buzz him, he sees me. So it's amazing to acknowledge something you would say that's insignificant, that your natural reaction would be to swat it away. So if a bee landed on me or an insect, the old me would have been like, pop. But then I realized I just killed an innocent being. So now if I have an insect on me, creepy crawly, no matter what it is, I don't care if it's crawling on the back of my neck. I might try to get a pin or something to be like, come on, guy, just get off. Because even putting your hand to move it, you can break its spine. You can break its leg. And so to me, that's being in the moment, even understanding that the fear of something unknown on you, crawling on you, it's irrelevant. You have to see that it's yourself, man. And like,
Right.
every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So I don't want to be responsible for harming that thing, because it might have a lifespan of 30 freaking days. And like, I took its life. It didn't even get to experience a whole month out of its life, man, because of a stupid reaction. Other than like a mosquito. Mosquitoes are some of the only things that I will swat. I'll even tell them. I'm like, I'll tell them with my mind, I'm like, if you keep it up, I'm going to have to take your life because you are harming me. And
Right.
you're getting to the point where you won't stop. I'm asking you nicely, please disperse. Even I lived in a house once with roaches, you know, I've never had roaches again. And I remember the roaches were getting out of control. And part of my evolution, I have a problem. I had a problem with killing them, just killing them, because it
Right.
reminded me of going to Mars or going to these other places and all these innocent insect beings we got to kill. And it's just like you talk to some of them in these missions and they have consciousness. And as above, so below, there's no difference in a 9-foot manid being and a freaking 3-inch version. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I just respect all life. I don't even like walking on grass if I don't have to. Because even when I step on grass with shoes, I apologize. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I think about the insects I kill just walking through my own grass.
Right.
Even
Just walking, you're doing damage. It's like impossible to do no harm, right? And like I've pondered these exact concepts too. Like when I came back from near-death experiences and was just like blasted wide open, and I'm just like, oh my God, it's all me. That moss on the tree is literally aware of me right now. We're communicating on a higher level. And
yes,
so like these things exist on higher levels too, you know, and most people aren't aware of that. It might be a lower dimensional being that has a base awareness, but they do have like a collective group awareness that is vibrating on the sixth dimension, you know, and it's like the elemental type of consciousness, how it expands out to avatar through things. Um, and so I agree. I also do no harm. I used to have a fear of spiders, and now I release them outside, unless it's like
me too.
venomous in my house or something. Then it's like, all right, you crossed the line. I got to kill you. Sorry.
Even me
You
with
know,
a venomous animal, I will still put it outside. Like I had this snake, a ball python, and his name is Slick. And I got him for a Christmas present from my ex-wife back in the day. And I kept him in this cage. It's like a 50, 60 gallon aquarium kind of deal. And like all the years I seen him sit in there and I just felt so bad. And I'm like, I'm imprisoning this innocent being for my own what's the word, for my own pleasure, I guess, to have all these insects and beings in my house because I used to collect animals and stuff. And I realized one day, like, what's the difference between some species taking me and putting me in a room that I can never escape from? They feed me 3 times a day. They give me everything I need. They clean my room up, but I'm never allowed to experience life outside that room.
right? But they're not free. I had the same realization, and it was like, I can't keep pets anymore. Just let them be free. You know, enjoy them in their freedom. Enjoy the lizards running around the walls. Enjoy, you know, the birds, like all that. So like, I really don't like keeping birds as pets. Like, let them be free. You
I'm the
know.
same way, man. It seems cruel to keep them in a cage they can never fly in, man. I don't know. It just seems wrong, like morally wrong. Like I've had birds before and I thought about it all the time about the cage. It's just like there's no difference in being imprisoned. And you do
Right.
it out of love. You're like, oh, hey, I saved your life in the wild and I'm gonna throw you in a bucket for the rest of your life.
Right.
You know? But I remember one day I went to go feed Slick and his eyes were his skin had grown over his eyes when he was shedding and stuff like that. And I remember I went to go grab him and he bit me. And the moment he bit me, it really hurt, first of all. But my reaction wasn't fear. I automatically realized that I'm like, holy crap, his eyes were covered over and he bit me because he didn't know what I was. He thought I was his phenom a rat. So it's just like the human nature would be to hurt the animal or like the venomous spider you were talking about because of what it can do. But like to me, I don't feel I have that right. You know what I did one day? it took all those years, and I decided I wanted to build Slick an outdoor cage. So I went and built, it took me 3 months to build it. I built a cage for him that's 4 feet wide, 6 foot long, and 8 feet tall. And it was a dome. Still have it out of my yard. But I realized one day I'm just putting him in a bigger cage. And he's now forced to look around at the world around him outside and see all the trees and feel the wind for the first time since he's probably been a kid. Well, he's probably never felt the wind because he was probably born in a freaking piece of plastic jar as an egg for sale. But like that moment, I realized he's getting to experience rain for the first time, the feeling of wind against his skin for the first time. I'm like, I almost had a mental breakdown. I'm like, what have I been doing to him? Like to for him to only experience this 12 or 13 years into his life, and I've had him for that long. And one day, I just remember it was before work, and I was just really having a hard time with having him in a cage. And I remember that day, I just left the trap door open for his outdoor cage. I'd never seen him again. But I knew in that moment, I felt content. Even if he died, no matter what,
At least he was free, right?
I let him experience life for the first time.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. And I agree with that. I've had those same realizations. You know? Yeah, I used to have
Think about
pets.
him all the time. I hope he's happy. I hope he's alive. But like, it took a lot to do that.
Yeah. I think the one thing that I've realized is like, yeah, like mosquitoes, if it's biting you, I'll kill it. And then when it comes to ticks, I used to live in Northern California, and the ticks are out of control, man. They're everywhere. And like they can carry diseases. And like, what are you just gonna let it go? Like they're in all the animals. Like if you they're everywhere, and they're a problem. And so I would be constantly, I'd have to kill all these ticks. And I realized, like, what's their purpose? Just to spread diseases? They're a parasite. And I was just like, maybe their purpose is for me to kill them, right? Because what do? Let it go? And I had this moral dilemma, like, what do I do? You know? And I realized I have to kill this thing. I cannot contribute to this infestation of something that could carry Lyme disease, which is literally can end people's lives, you know? And so when it comes to that and like parasites, like mosquitoes, um, yeah, I think that I'm supposed to kill them if they're in my space, you know?
You know what's funny? I told you the roach story about the roaches, right? And
Yeah,
I remember I told you I was morally conflicted killing them. And when you're morally conflicted taking a life, it can get out of control, especially if they're a roach. They can really get out of control populations. I remember breaking down one day, and I remember connecting to the spirit of the roach. And I said, please, roach energy, I do not want to harm you. I am morally conflicted in harming you, but you're getting out of control. And I understand that the life I was living got out of control. I got lazy, and I made conditions in which you would have to manifest to show me those conditions. Now I understand I created these conditions. I humbly ask you to retreat and to go away, because if you don't, I will have to keep harming you, and that goes against everything I believe in. They freaking went away.
yeah, that's awesome. You know, I had an experience on the medicine where I met Shiva, and I had like this 2 hour conversation one-on-one with him. And I've had interface with Shiva for 13 years. But anyway, like he was showing me the interconnectedness of all creation. And at a certain, I was asking all these questions, and I was like, well, what about like roaches, for example? And it was just something that came up, and he showed me, and I veered into their consciousness and realized how they literally play a part in this system too. And I was just like, wow. And so I viewed it all differently. Like it actually plays a role in it too, you know, and
Everything
yeah,
that exists plays a role, and we just
yeah,
can't see it. We just can't see it because we think we're human. We're the best of the best.
right. And so I like how you handled that by talking to it. You know, I had this experience where I was hiking, and this is back when I had my old dog, and this is probably in like 2017, I think. And I was hiking, and it was starting to get warm out in the seasons. And I got to this big rock, and I was like meditating on it, catching my breath. And my two dogs went under this big boulder in the shade, and then I heard like, and I was thinking, what bees? And I realized, oh, that's a rattlesnake. You know, so I ran over there, and he's like back in the corner under this boulder in the shade, and there's just this little trail. The only way to get back there, because there's like a boulder right here and more rocks, and there's a coiled up rattlesnake rattling right here in the middle. And I was just like, oh no, did he already get bit? Like, how did he get back there? What do I do? And he was 13 at the time and going blind. And then he started walking over to me, and I was like, no, 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 no. And I panicked, and I didn't know what to do. And like the panic started to arise, and then suddenly this energy came in of like calmness, and I projected it into the rattlesnake, like, it's okay, you're chill, you're safe. And he literally walked over this things, and his paws like almost hit it in the face, and it did not strike him. Like, he walked over the thing, a 100-pound pit bull. And I was just like, oh my God, it worked. And I looked at this thing in the eyes and was like, thank you for not taking my boy. Thank you. And I could tell it was like supernatural. And then fast forward 7 years down the road, I'm back hiking in that spot again, and I'm meditating. And this is recently. This is a couple months ago. And I felt this presence, and it was benevolent, but it was clearly reptilian, and it freaked me out, startled me, and I was like, whoa, what is that? And I was like, make yourself known. And then I saw this black thing phase in, like the size of a bus, like maybe 200-300 feet in the air, phase in and fly and then phase out. And I saw it clearly with my own eyes. This isn't third eye stuff. And then I was like, what is that? But it was not negative. It did not startle me, because I was picking up on the frequency of it. And I was like, who are you? And I tuned in, and it was a dragon. It was a literal dragon, dude. And he told me that he was also responsible for not having that snake bite my dog in the past, and that I've had this dragon energy around me for a very long time, which I've interacted with on the medicine and in other realms, but never completely natural, just through meditation and having it pop in with my own eyes. And so, yeah, that's a thing too.
It'll change your
There's,
life, because once you realize that something like that is real and you can really communicate with them indirectly with intention, it changes the way you see everything, man. Because you realize
yes,
it's not chaos and it's not random anymore. You realize that you don't need language and physical words. It can be your intention. You're like, please, energy of the roaches, please, energy of the snakes, I beg you, don't let this happen. I appreciate you. I honor your life, and I do not want to extinguish it. So please respect my choice, and please respect what I'm asking. Because how many people have ever done that? How many people have been caught in the middle of the ocean because their ship just went down and they're in the middle of water infested by sharks? No one thinks about speaking to the shark energy and saying, please, instead of like begging for your life or being emotional, you're in the moment, you're connecting to what their energy is. And you're
right,
saying, please respect that I understand that I can be considered food, but I'm letting you know that I'm operating on a level of evolution, and I would appreciate having this moment for the rest of my life. And knowing that this one moment taught me to not fear sharks because they didn't instigate it and start biting me or something, then I was saved. And from that moment on, I'd be able to swim with sharks, not worrying about it, because that actually kind of happened. I didn't go down in a boat or anything, but I was in Australia, the Great Barrier Reef, and some sharks came and stuff. And like before that, I was afraid of sharks. And then once you get to see something that's so beautiful face to face, man, it can change you. Like when I can look at something in the eyes, kind of like you say a snake, the fear's there, but in that moment you realize it's just you. And there is no anger, no animosity, and it's only just being a shark. Kind of like that snake. Your dog or you startled that rattlesnake, and it was in fear of its life, therefore it was reacting, but it was only in fear of itself, not understanding what was happening. So if you can be in that fear and not let that fear get to you, you can transmute it, and it can become a life-changing lesson. Like everything I used to be afraid of, I'm no longer afraid of it because I faced it. And it's like, I see it as beautiful. Like the most ugliest insects that people would say is ugly, or like you would look at it and you would feel disgusting, I think are the most beautiful. Like you look insects under a microscope, I'm like, that's me. It's like a self-portrait. I'm in a different body. My eyes are different. Like I have antennas, I have a lot more arms and legs, but like that same fear that exists within me also exists within that little insect. When I'm viewing it as a human, it's fearing me, but I'm fearing it back. And then you realize all of it's an illusion, and it's a mirror to show yourself that you have these fears, and it's just an illusion. So now I can be around snakes. I can pick up snakes, and if they bite me, it's fine. I don't care. It's it's kind of like the story of a man had a fire, and somehow a random snake came up, got scared, and it found itself in the fire. So the man goes to grab the snake to pull the snake out of the fire so it doesn't burn, but then the snake, while getting pulled out, bites the man. And in that moment, the man could have chose to throw the snake back in the fire, but in that moment he realized that the snake was only in fear because it was getting burned. But the man even chose, even in that moment, to get bit. It also spared that snake's life. You know what that would have done to that snake long term? What it could have done for that snake's evolution? That could have been the one moment that made it become a human in its next life. You know what I'm saying? Because the animal kingdom, it's eventually going to become a human. That's why
Yes.
we're plants and animals first. Like
Right.
almost like our animals, we're teaching them how to become human. We're showing them kindness that you wouldn't have in their own dominion, because they don't have stuff like that. They don't know what that's like. But that can be that one spark, that one moment that helps them evolve and search it up for source. You're like, there something bigger than me? I'm only a dog, but like I'm searching up to the sky, and I just have questions. At that point, once you start seeking, then you evolve.
You know what? And I think I like, for instance, well, certain pets are like higher beings coming in to play the role of pets, but like other pets, you might help to evolve, and when in they're having their human lifetimes, you might be like a higher dimensional spirit guiding them and be one of their guides. It might keep stepping up like that through the dimensions.
Yeah, your dog could be ninth dimensional and be like a general, like you have no idea.
So I'll tell you this story. Back that same dog who I was talking about, he's now passed, but he came to me in this, like, I only microdosed some mushrooms. It was like nothing, but it was just enough to thin the veil that he came to me in this like Merkaba vehicle. His consciousness did, and he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna get sick soon. You need to prepare yourself for it," and so on and so on. And I was kind of devastating news, and sure as he said, it happened exactly how he said. And I kept him alive as long as I could. And then once he passed, um, 2 days later, I was like sitting in this chair in the morning, just kind of, processing everything. And all of a sudden, boom, I go out of body and I see him there. He came to visit me, and he's around all these other beings, like these higher dimensional beings. Like he's got a group of people around him, and he's all young and wagging his tail. And he's like, "What's up, dude? I'm good." I'm like, "Don't worry about me." He's all happy. I'm like, oh man, it was just a weight lifted. He's like, "Death is no big deal. I'm good." And anyway, he stuck around me for quite some time, like protecting me, because there was a lot of spiritual warfare going on back there. And I remember one night I was like getting ready for bed, and I saw the bed sheets pressed down, like he's like doing a circle to lay down. And I was like, oh my God, he's still here. And then like I've connected with him other times, and I realized, he's since moved on from this plane into his higher aspects, and that he is a very advanced being that came down to play the role of my dog. And I connected with his higher self and was like, oh my God, wow. This is a very advanced being playing the role of my dog, that it was an agreement free life. And so a lot of people have that situation going on, and so yeah, it really, I keep learning more and more and more, and it's humbling.
That's why I never take animals for granted, man. I remember when I had pet rats for the first time, I realized they're very beautiful creatures and they like when they're petted. And like I had these Dumbo rats that I rescued from like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist. I don't remember what it was, but like the big Dumbo weird freaking rats. And like when you pet them and rub their head, they close their eyes and their body starts shaking. And you can see the utter joy in them. And it was just like, oh my God, it's just like people don't know the complexities of what animals really are and their span of emotions and what they feel. And we assume that they don't have any of it, that they're just like a baser instinct, eat, consume, replicate kind of thing. But it's not, man. Like they feel fears, they feel ambition, they fear being stuck in a cage their whole life, man. That's why they're always trying to escape. It's just like you see that over time. It's just me 15 years ago, I would have had a bunch of animals in my house. Like I think the most I've ever had in my house was 20 animals. But it gets to a point where I realized where I was imprisoning all these animals and they never left my house. And it was basically like a big prison cell. And like they never got to experience life. Yes, I gave them an awesome life and I showed them love, but like, look what they didn't get to experience. So I think the older you get, the more you evolve and you see the connection to source, the less pets you have. Because I don't know, it could be either or, but like, again, the old me, I would have a shitload of pets, but I have fish, but I still think that they're in a freaking prison cell, even though it's a big tank. It's just like, I think about it almost every day. When I look at them, I feel nothing but joy and I love being with them and around them. And it's just like, I want to just release them to the freaking pond, to the lake, man, like,
Yeah, yeah, it goes to show how important freedom is, right? In every level, microcosm to macrocosm. A lot of people don't, they take that for granted. And like, especially what's going on in our world today, like, this is not freedom, you know?
freaking sucks. This planet is so painful and it has so many lessons. It's not like any other place in the cosmos, man. Like you have to be a warrior to be on this planet, period. You
Yeah.
might not feel like you're a warrior or you might feel weak, but the fact that you're here listening to this transmission and this interview right now means that you are stronger than you can ever imagine. And you are a freaking warrior. So no matter what you're going through in life, just understand you've got through it. You've made it to this point in this time. And I know it might feel like it can end at any moment or life is getting taken from you, but like, just be the warrior. Just remain steadfast and step through it and just be, because it's a gift to be in the physical, man. Like, you know how many beings are waiting right now to be physical? Like, there's only so many spots on these planets where beings can physically be physical. So if you're here in the physical, even though your life, like me, all I've known is pain and trauma. Like, I have 16 or 18 broken bones that I feel every day. And I don't even sleep an hour or two a night. If I'm lucky, I can sleep an hour a night. But I don't curse it. I'm thankful to be alive. I'm thankful to feel the pain. I'm thankful to see the beauty. I'm thankful to hear the rain raining right now. Like, odds are the Zoom video has the background audio cut and you can't hear it. There's a big storm happening right now. But I'm thankful for every thunderstrike, for every drop that hits my roof. And it makes me feel alive, man, because like, this is what life is about. The smallest things in life, connected to the smallest things. Like, the big things in life, like people say, when I have money, I'll be happy. The problem is people treat money as a destination, not a tool. The ultimate goal is not to have the money. The goal is to have the money, the tool to create your life. Because again, you can have $100 million and you're never going to stop getting more money. You're going to want to be a billionaire at that point. So again, the money becomes the destination. And you say, when I have all this money, then I'll be happy. It's all a lie, man. Never have it as a destination. Use it as a tool to help you do the things you want to do and create, man. And then it'll come to you. If you're not being targeted, like people like us in the programs, naturally it'll just come to you unless you're being targeted. Because they won't let us be, well, they won't let us have wealth. They won't let us have money, like good money. We're always broke. Like, some of the most successful light workers, we're all broke, man. We're not living the life of luxury, getting flown around the world, speaking in all these conferences. You know how much it costs to talk at a conference? The freaking speaker fee you get paid doesn't even cover the flight or the hotel. So like this, there is no money in this unless they pay all that. No, I'm sorry. It's what people think. People always say that, people are doing this for the money. I'm like, what money are you talking about? Like, no one has
Right.
a 7-season Gaia show on freaking Gaia and is being propped up by all these corporations on book speaking tours and all this stuff. How many people out of all the whistleblowers in the world even do that? Not many. So almost all of us, we're all perpetually broke all the time, no matter how awesome we look and all the possessions we have or the lives we change. We're as broke as you, man.
And there's another thing that I've noticed over the years. The people in this community that are really speaking the truth don't get put out there that much or invited back to certain conferences. And the people who are just coming with some like mid-level stuff are just like in the limelight,
Johnny Enoch talks about that. He says that most of these conferences are for infotainment only.
Yeah.
So people that really are talking about the truth, like the Full Disclosure Now conference is one of the most realest conference I've been to in my entire life. And it's hands down my favorite conference I've ever been to. Because everybody's speaking, we were allowed to talk about the things that the other conferences don't allow you to speak about.
Yeah, I like that.
Because everything else is infotainment. They're propping up all the people on the Gaia shows and the Contact in the Desert people and the Linda Moten Howells of the world. And like, you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying.
There's only one Linda Moten Howell, man. There's not 100 Linda Moten Howells, everybody monopolizing on all this money. It's just like, it's funny how just people think that's the reality, man. It's just, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, no, I'm doing this because I literally have an agreement to do this. It's part of my soul's purpose. And, I'm on the ground level and I'm aware of that. And I have daily contact with star beings. And it's just like, all this stuff wouldn't be happening for no reason. And for me to not speak up about it would be a weak move. And I would look back in hindsight after this life and be like, man, I wish I said something. And that's part of the reason why I started doing this. in the first place, because I realized there is no death and there's nothing to be afraid of, right? You know, and so who cares if people don't agree with you? You know, you don't have to give everyone level 100 type of information. Just gauge someone to where they're at and give them, you know, just plant seeds. You don't have to like ruin all your relationships, but you can plant seeds in a way that works, you know. And I'm speaking to our audience right now, not you. And so, but definitely speak up for yourself, and everyone is involved in this. If you're watching this program at this moment and resonating with this information, it's because um, you're connected to this somewhere in your soul. You have a higher calling to hold this frequency and to assist Mother Earth, assist Pachamama in the awakening of humanity. And that's literally what we're doing, you know. And all the realms are taking notice of what's happening here, and we're at the ground level. So wherever you're at in your process, it's okay. You know, don't think of yourself as like, oh man, I went through this or I experienced this. You can pull out of it. You know, I've been through terrible stuff, and I turned it all into who I am today. And if I can do that, anybody can do it. So, you know, drop the self-judgment and come with the self-love and move forward, you know.
Use your trauma as a fuel to become the change you want to see in the world, because if you become a product of what you went through, then you fell. That's it. You People like to say, well, this is what happened to me in my past, it's who I am. No, it's not. What happened to you in your past no longer exists. You can choose to become someone new tomorrow, today, by making that choice. The analogy of making a left or making a right. You can change it at any time. It doesn't matter if you're 90 years old. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like you're a 90-year-old will go skydiving for the first time because they decided to step out of the fear and not say a 90-year-old person cannot skydive. You know, it's on the waiver if you're a certain age or you suffer from heart attacks, blah, 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 you're not eligible. Bullshit. Like, step into your fear, man, because when you die, that's going to be one of your biggest regrets. So do what you feel you need to do without fear of being retaliated against or past it being wrong or right. Just do it because you feel it's right. Do it. Don't let it be a regret. The number one thing people say upon death on the deathbed is they regret living their life for their family and their children because that was their whole life. They never got to experience who they were and what they're capable of, and their entire life was based on other people. That's the number one regret upon death. They never got to experience life. So stop making the priority everyone else and make it yourself. Because when I ask people on a regular basis, what's the thing in life you love the most? And parents will always say, my children, every time. And I always see it coming. And I'm like, all right, let's remove your family. Let's remove the children. What do you love the most in life? And then they think about it and they can't think of a single thing because they've never truly lived life. It's always been about for other people. They don't even know what they're capable of, which is, in my opinion, a shitty life, man. Because like, to not know who you are and you're only living for other people, it's almost like you're a nurse and you only care for other people that is harmed, but no one cares about who you are outside that hospital. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
no one gets to consider who you are or what you've been through or what you've done for people and what it does to you. And it'll mess you up long term to be a custodian of somebody without someone else helping to be a custodian for yourself, you know?
You know, and there's many layers to it too. One time Madre Ayahuasca told me, she came in and like revealed her true form like one of many times and was just like, you need to love yourself more. And I was thinking like, what? I do. But then I realized there's so many different layers and different ways you can love yourself more, and you can stop replaying the negative thoughts. You can, you know, make better dietary choices, vitamins, you know, you can treat yourself better. You can, there's so many different ways to implement self-love, right? And to make better choices in life. And then you don't really see it until you make a conscious aware, you know, effort to look at yourself and look at your actions and look at your patterns, you know, because we tend to be so stuck in our own rut that we think, oh, it's all good, and we're just like have these blinders on all these areas of our life, you know. And so remove the blinders and look at yourself, even if it hurts, you know, because the inner work never stops. There's never a destination where you're like, I'm done. It just keeps going and keeps going.
Yeah, because if you're done, you have nothing worth living for anymore. You know what I'm saying? So that'll only start the process of death. We found out through QHHT that when you stop living for something, it starts the death process. So if there's nothing else to live for, there's no more experiences you think you can have, there's no more life to live, then the body starts breaking down. So like, again, through that epigenetic thought, you could control what happens to your body. That's why you, on one side, you see an 80-year-old with a fitness body with a six-pack, and then you see an 80-year-old that is 1 foot shorter than they used to be with a hunchback with a little walker that can barely
Right.
walk a mile an hour. It was the choice that you made. One accepted old age, one accepted that they'll never be young again, they'll never be able to move or be free. The other one refused to accept it. Period.
Right.
They're like, I
I,
am not going to become that person on a walker. No way in hell.
so I mean, it comes down to willpower too, right? You know, and this goes down to like the solar plexus, and this is another area that's heavily targeted. Like you got to tap into your inner will, and you got to forge forward, and you know, bend the universe to your will. You know, and we don't have to do things the traditional linear way, like, oh, I got to make this happen to make this happen to make this happen. Oh, and that seems impossible. Like throw that thought form out and just focus on where you're headed and believe in it and let the universe work its magic, and opportunities will appear, things will appear, synchronicities will show up, and it's up to you to take those opportunities when they show up, you know, or else it passes you by.
Kind of
So
like being the yes man, like I was saying
right,
earlier. If it happens
right,
once in a scenario comes, that's your moment to maybe transcend something. And if you don't step into it then, it could be 10 more years before you're presenting another moment like that.
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
it's funny, man, this has been a pretty profound talk. There's so many nuggets of philosophy in the things we've said during this interview. And I think it's going to change a lot of people when they see this.
This is, yeah, I agree. I fully agree. This has been great, and it's been great connecting with you and your intelligence. And I definitely um, enjoyed this whole process and meeting you. And I feel like if you and I lived close, we'd be hanging out, we'd be friends. And so it's. I'm glad
I'd be
that
tattooing you, bro.
right? For sure you would.
I agree,
Um,
man. You don't truly know someone until you can have a conversation. I feel that this interview was a step to the side. What I mean by that is normally only people want to talk about like secret space program stuff, and like to me it kind of gets old, and it makes me think that that's what people they think that's all I am. So it's cool to get into the existential part of life because it lets other people know that you're not just this freaking soldier grunt that's only known trauma and pain, but like, look at what we've learned through being a soldier and through all that trauma. Look what we walked away with, even
right,
with all the turmoil and all the suffering and all the loss. Look what we've become. Like, if I can literally take all my pain and not sleeping and be through all this physical pain and all these broken bones, and it still has not broken me, and I don't wake up angry anymore, and I don't wake up and yell in my pillow when the alarm goes off because I didn't sleep a minute, I don't let it defeat me no more. And if I can do that, then the person that has the pain pill drug addiction that's numbing their pains, they're knowing I'm doing it with zero numbing. I don't do pharmaceuticals. I don't do pain pills. I don't do no numbing whatsoever. So if you can see that I can do it, you can do it. And everything we talked about, man, it was some really deep stuff, man. And like, there's so many nuggets of information in this. Like, I feel that I can watch this interview 5 or 6 times myself, just rewatching the interview. And I discover new things each time because we've talked about so many different things. It's hard to have a conversation about one because it's like we have so many different cool perspectives to talk about, and like everything ties in together. But this is one of my favorite conversations of these interviews, so I'll at least tell you that.
Yeah, no, I'm super grateful that we made this happen, and definitely honored to meet you. And then there was one more thing I wanted to say that just came to mind about the epigenetics. You know, I have titanium and 4 screws in my neck, and I have titanium in my forearm, and they told me that the fusion did not heal, and that they wanted to put pins and rods and go in, and there was already too many screws in this vertebrae, so they had to fuse the one above it and the one below it, and they were just basically like, yeah, you need to have major spinal surgery. And um I fell into a depression for like a less than a week before I snapped out of it. I was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to heal myself. And I did. And they were telling me, well, it's not going to heal. You can't heal it. And I was like, how about no? You know?
I'm the same way. I don't trust doctors. I'm like, you are misinformed, sir. Your knowledge is located in a box this small, and that's what a PhD is. And anything outside this box is not programming, and you are programmed. So
Right.
I'm gonna prove you wrong. And that's what we've seen around the world, people proving people wrong and coming out of stuff miraculously because their mind told them it was going to happen. They believed. And that's what the placebo effect is. The placebo is just a word for manifesting.
Right.
But it sounds weird. It sounds scientific. They're like placebo effect. That means people that are unaffected. Not really. They just didn't believe in the other shit you were trying to tell them was possible. And they healed themselves without this false implant of a belief. You know, here, take this pill, we'll get rid of your cancer. Oh, no, no, no. You told me I have cancer. No way in hell I believe that. I'm going home and I'm doing my work. I'm like vibrating my body. There's no cancer. We're pulling in the white light energies. We're breaking it out of the body. And next thing you know, there's no cancer.
Yep.
So be the change you want to see. Use the mind. Consciousness is power. And remember, this is a war of the consciousness. So your thoughts are power. So create the reality you want to see. And that's how it works.
Beautifully said. And so I would recommend, if anyone wants a QHHT session, that they would check Drago out and check his. Do you have a website, or how? What do you?
Yeah, basically you can go on right here at fractaloflight.com. And just like Seth was saying earlier, I have a show with Laura Eisenhower called the Rebel Collective on rumble.com. I also have a show of my own called Portal to Another Dimension. And that is on rumble.com as well. So I have 2 different shows. And again, you can find me on my website.
Awesome, brother. Well, this was a great experience, and I look forward to staying in touch. And I think we'll go ahead and end it here.
I'll definitely be on again, man. It was an awesome conversation. I look forward to the next one, my brother.
Awesome. I agree. We will definitely do it again.
All right. Until next time, everybody.
All right.